Hello everyone, good evening. Can you hear me clearly?
Hello, good evening.
Hello Hashida, good evening. Hello everyone. Hello Ms. Arsha. Hello Lali. It looks
Good
like
evening.
the others are joining at 8, right? So it's 7:30 now. But still, hello everyone. So
Hi.
not an activity today. We are going to
Yeah.
revise these things that we have on the board. Like we're going to discuss verbs, tenses, and the time words that relate to these tenses. Those are the things that we have completed so far. We've discussed verbs and we've discussed tenses and time words. So as we saw last week, when we do activities, it is kind of very active really, and that's what's expected of an activity. But if we just do them every day, then we lose the time to have discussions regarding tenses and stuff. But we should have a few of those like that because that gives you an authentic experience on how you have improved and how much you have learned and how you can use them during their communication. And when someone asks you something and you can give an impromptu answer rather than thinking and taking time to think and formulate a sentence in your head, if you can just say what comes to your head and just get on with it, then that will be really great. And to test that, we need things like those live debates, live activities where you have to create or formulate an idea in your head and then just turn it into words rather than spending time to think about the grammar and just look here and there for vocabulary. So we will have another activity like that. I'm planning next week if we somehow manage to complete this today within the 2 or 2.5 hour time that we have, then yeah, we can obviously go for that activity next week and I can give you some time to prepare. Oh, so we have Lali today. Hello, Lali. Uh, you didn't get the chance to participate in that activity that we did last week, and I just uploaded the recording of that to your Google Classroom only this morning because really there isn't anything for the others who couldn't join to learn there other than watching how the others engaged in that fun thing that we did. So yeah. Next week we're going to have another activity called the lifeboat activity. And for that, some survival skills and knowledge about how people survived on islands, on the sea. Those things might be useful. So just a clue for you to figure out what you need to be familiar with. So it is also something like the one that we did last week, but it doesn't need this much preparation. You don't have to come up with a huge alibi or a story in order to do that. But you need to have some experience about how different things in our life, like things that we use day to day, things like glasses, bottles, bags, even polythene, can help you in difficult situations. So as a suggestion, last week I told you to watch a particular movie called Castaway, where you get who's the actor? Tom Hanks. So that's just one survival movie. There are many. So if you just watch at least them, or if you have read something about survival, then you might come up with very creative ideas during the actual thing that we are going to do. It's not a game, it's a more like a debate where you get to express your ideas and things that you're familiar with, things that you know. So that's the plan for next week. But we need to finish this today somehow. So if we finish this today, then we can easily go to that. And there is Charu, that's Charuni, right? So we have two people who couldn't participate actually last week. I hope they will be able to be put into a different groups, and then that will help you in the future. Like you have more team members to talk to. So are those groups active? Like, do you talk to each other? Do you like have you found friends? I hope so. But if you haven't found anyone to talk to at the moment, you should try to find another colleague too. Because now during this program, how you benefit from this is really, as you have said, like you have been with this program for about 16 weeks now. This is the 14th class, but you have been here for about 16 weeks with the program, talking to your teachers and doing that. Although we had so many issues with the power cuts and those other issues in the country. So this this iteration of this program, the one that we are doing with you, it faced so many issues. So It hasn't been the ideal version that I had imagined, but how about your experience? What have you learned so far? What has been your approach into learning, and how have your one-to-one meetings been going? Any Have you found any new friends to talk with? Because as from what I see, you get these weekly sessions with me and then one-to-one sessions with your teachers. You can have more practice if you talk to the members that you find in the class or those smaller WhatsApp groups that you have got. You get that? That's why I'm always reminding you to find somebody in that group who wants to practice English. Because just imagine in another 15 weeks or so, this program is over, then you don't have any of these weekly sessions anymore. And if you choose not to continue one-to-one meetings with your teachers, then they are also done. Like there are no more weekly meetings. Then all you are left with is the world outside to speak or practice English. But if you somehow find someone who has the same goal, like you want to improve your speaking ability, and the people who have joined this program, everyone, they also have the same purpose. They also want to improve their English and especially their speaking ability. So since all of you have the same purpose, finding people who can help you is easier within this environment or within this group, within this set. So please do that, because I really believe that that will be really helpful for your future and for your practice. And that will be a natural way of finding a conversation partner than paying somebody to talk to, right? They're just, if you can make friends, if you can find someone who has the same interests, then it will be really good. I think Miss Ajanta and Miss Harshi, you have found each other to speak, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm really happy about that, because that gives you more chances to practice and that gives you more conversation practice time. And if you have something that you are not sure of, maybe a vocabulary item, maybe a grammar point, then you can first discuss amongst yourselves and then you can ask your one-to-one teachers. And if even then that is not solved, you can reach out to me, or else there are so many other places that you can reach out to. Did I tell you about this website? I will write that down here. So it is Stack Exchange. So Stack Exchange, not Stack Overflow. I think Lali must be familiar with Stack Overflow. That's where you programmers go to when you have to find solutions for programming issues or software engineering issues. And then there's another website called Stack Exchange. Stack Exchange is not just primarily for English, it has so many topics and so many discussion threads. So the benefit of using a place like that, or a website or a forum like that, is when you post a question, you will get answers from the crowd. And the other thing is, most of the people who submit answers there, they have a particular score that is called the reputation. So the more good answers or more correct answers they submit, and the more crowd approval that they get on those answers, their ranking, their score, that goes up. Do you get my point? So from that score, you can determine whether that answer is something that you should accept or not. And the other thing is, the people who are here, they are just enthusiastic about providing answers and building their reputation, and just people have that ego, right? They want to feed their ego by getting external validation, or when people value them, they feel happy. So that's why many people submit their answers there. And they do pay attention to the accuracy and the clarity of those answers. So this is a very good place for you to submit your answers regarding issues and problems that you have about the English language or its usage. What you can do is you can go to a subdomain on this website that is called english.stackexchange.com. There you can see so many frequently asked questions and good answers that have been given, and based on the reputation of the score that each answer has got, you can figure out whether that is an accepted usage or not. For example, if you're not sure of a particular phrase, say, when you have to say this, මොකක් හරි දෙයක් ගැන සාකච්ඡා කරනවා. This comes because of our mother tongue influence in Sinhala. අපි ඒ දේ ගැන සාකච්ඡා කළා ඔය වගේ අදහසක් නේ අපි ඔළුවට හරි කියලා දැන්. But in English, the usage is discuss something. It's not discuss about something. But to know that, you need to either look up the usage of the verb, or else you just have to know it from practice and usage, that when you use the verb discuss, then the topic of discussion that comes as discuss this issue, not discuss about this issue. So simple things like that. They are about usage, and it's not basically about grammar. It's just about learning how to use that verb. So when you have doubts, when you have issues like that, what you can do is you can look them up here. In most cases, those questions have already been asked. So you will just come up with an instant answer. But even if you don't come up with an instant answer, an instant response, then you can just wait a few hours and someone will definitely provide you with an answer. So yeah, that's a very good place to find answers for the issues and doubts you have. And it's 7:50, and I think we should start our main session. So as I told you, today, our main purpose is to revise what you have learned and to clear the doubts or issues that you have. So far, we have discussed verbs, tenses, and time words. They went together. And regarding tenses, we discussed voice and aspect. Voice key, active voice, passive voice. ඒ වගේ දේවල් ගැන අපි කතා කළා. And වගේම tenses වල aspects කිහිපයක් කතා කරා. Simple present tense කියද්දී අපි present tense එක ගැන තමයි කතා කරන්නේ, but it's a simple tense. Then we also discussed present progressive or present continuous tense. And when it comes to past tenses, we talked about few different past tenses, right? Do you remember? We talked about simple past, then we talked about past progressive or past continuous. And we looked at different use cases of past continuous. That is, we can use past continuous to talk about something in progress at a particular past moment. And also we can use past progressive or past continuous to talk about background actions of other events. And another one. What's another past related tense that we discussed, but it doesn't have the name or the word past in that name of that tense? A past දේවල් පරණ දේවල් ගැන කතා කරන්නේ තව tense එකක් තියෙනවා කියලා අපි එදා කතා කළා. හැබැයි ඒ tense එකේ නමේ නැහැ past කියලා කතාවක්. Do you remember which tense that was? එකෙන් කතා කරන්නේ පරණ ඉවර දේවල් ගැන හැබැයි. Past කියන වචනේ. Perfect. Which perfect tense?
Past perfect.
මගේ past කියන වචනේ ඒක නැහැ.
Present perfect
tense.
Present
Yes,
perfect tense.
very good. And we have past perfect and present perfect and simple past. Then let's just put past perfect aside and focus on the difference between simple past and present perfect. What was the difference there? Let's ask that from who's online. Oh, anyone can answer, because that's not an easy question. That's a bit tricky. What's the difference between simple past and present perfect? So those are the doubts that we are going to look into today, and we are going to clear those doubts and give you a better understanding. But before we start, you can try. Yes, Ms.
in simple past, we have already finished the activity. That means the activity is completed. Then
in present perfect,
also we activity, then I can't exact.
Okay, that's fine. Let's take 2 example sentences, and then during this session, we will try to clear that. Who can give an example using simple past?
I wrote a letter.
I wrote a letter. Okay, then if you just look at, if you just take that verb and the object from that, and then convert that into present perfect, what would be the sentence? Let's ask that from Hashita. So that sentence in simple past is, I wrote a letter. Then if we just take the verb and the object from that sentence and then put it into the present perfect, what would be the sentence we get?
I am.
I have. When it is present perfect, it is either have or has.
Sorry. Okay. I have uh, uh,
Right,
wrote,
not written.
wrote,
Use a B3
read,
form in present perfect. You remember?
written a letter.
I have written a letter. Right. So regarding the usage, let's focus on that when we are actually discussing those two tenses. And those are the comparisons that we need to look into. And also on a particular week, I can't remember which week that was really. It was not the last week, the one before or the one earlier. So we talked about several methods that we use for talking about the future. So when it comes to tenses, we have a future simple or simple future, then future progressive, or you can say future continuous, then future perfect continuous. But some other tenses also indicate future, although they don't have the term future in it. So that's the fun thing, the beautiful thing that we have in English. So the tense and its name, they don't always correlate. The usage is what matters. Do you remember? එහෙම එකක් මතකද? ඒ කියන්නේ tense එකේ නමේ future තිබ්බා කියලා ඒක future විතරක් වෙනවා. present tense කියලා කිව්වට ඒ වලින් present විතරක්ම කතා කරනවා. past වලදී තියෙන මේ වගේ දෙයකින් past වල ලොකු issue එකක් නැහැ. present වල past ගැන කතා කරනවා. ඒ වගේම present වලින් future ගැනත් කතා කරන්න පුළුවන්. We had some things like that, right? So unlike in Sinhala, when you are learning English, you should mainly focus on the usage, not the name of the tense. මේ ටෙන්ස් එක මෙහෙම අයිඩියා එකක් කියන්නත් පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් කියන්නේ. මතකද අපි future ගැන කතා කරනකොට we looked at different types of futures. We can use will to talk about future, and we had a few more things to talk about future. What are they? Just a slight reminder of what they were.
Going to, sir. I am going to migrate
I'm
next
going to.
week.
Very good. So going to is another method that we use to talk about future. Two more things. අපි ලබන සතියේ
Will
නුවර
be.
යනවා.
About to.
About to, yes. Then we have another two. So on that week, actually, we talked about 5 or 6 methods to discuss future. So yeah, about to, going to, then will, yes.
I will be.
I will be going to, yes. A very simple
I
thing.
will be. Yes.
And?
I will be there.
Uh-huh. Can't you remember present continuous being used like for planned future actions? අපි ලබන සතියේ නුවර යනවා. How do we say it?
We are going to go Candy next week.
We can simply say we are going to Canada next week. We don't have to say going to go because going to, we use that for what kind of future actions? They can also be planned, but things that will happen based on what's happening right now, or the මේ වෙලාවේ තියෙන evidence උඩ මොනවා හරි වෙයි කියලා අපි හිතනවා නම් then we can say going to. So an example, cousin is going to fail the exam. Why? අපිට පේනවා cousin පාඩම් කරන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. So අපිට prediction එකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන් cousin is going to fail the exam. The reason is he's not studying. He doesn't study or he didn't study. Right? But we cannot say cousin is failing the exam next year. මොකද එයා හිතාගෙන plan කරන්න ඉන්නවා කියලා කියනවා නෙමෙයිනේ. But things like this, හෙට මේ cousin අපේ දෙහා යනවා. එතකොට we don't have to say cousin and his family, they are going to come here tomorrow. We can simply say cousin and his
May or
family.
might. We can use may or might.
Yes, we can use may or might, but then they fall into that other category that we discussed, which is predictions based on the speaker's belief. ඒ කියන්නේ කතා කරන කෙනා කොහොම ඒක ගැන විශ්වාස කරන්න කියන එක අනුව කියලා මතකද? ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් මම හිතනවා නම් is there another match coming up in the next week or so? Like Sri Lanka won the last match, right, with against Bangladesh. Do they have a one-day series or T20 series or something planned? I don't know, but let's say that now they are in the right mood, the Sri Lankan cricket team. So let's suppose there's another one-day match coming in the next week or next Tuesday. I'm really not sure. I haven't been following them recently. So let's just assume that there is a one-day match planned on this Tuesday. So as a cricket fan, මම හිතනවා දැන් ලංකාව අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මොකද දෙනයි කියලා. Then I would say Sri Lanka will win the next match, right? But if I'm being a bit skeptical and ඇත්ත තත්ත්වය ගැන බලුවොත් ලංකාවක දිනන්නත් පුළුවන් පරදින්නත් පුළුවන් 50-50 chance එකක් තියෙනවා. දෙපැත්තටම බලයි. Then I might say Sri Lanka may win the next match.
Yes.
And if I'm not even that much sure එහෙම
Might.
දැරෙන් පරදි කියන පැත්තට නම් මට බර මම හිතන විදිය Sri Lanka might win the next match. හැබැයි එතකොට what am I implying that ඒක නොවන පැත්තට බර වැඩි කියලා මම හිතනවා කියන එකයි කියන්නේ. So when we use will, may and might to talk about the future, that indicates the speaker's belief on the probability of that action. But when we use ing, present continuous with a future time word, then that's a planned future action. When we use going to, the match එක යන අතරතුරේ අපි හිතමු බංග්ලාදේශ් ඉනින් එකේ කට්ටිය ලකුණු 100ට all out වුණා overs 50ක match එකක. එතකොට දැන් ශ්‍රී ලංකන් team එක මේ second inning එක play කරනකොට overs 20ක් විතර යද්දි දැන් ලකුණු 70ක් විතර ගහලා wickets දෙකයි වැටලා තියෙන්නේ. තව wickets 8ක් තියෙනවනේ. ලකුණු 100නේ අල්ගොල්ල ගැහුවේ. ඉතින් තව ඉතුරු overs එකක ලකුණු 30ක් ගහගන්න බැරි නැහැනේ. over එකට ලකුණු එක ගහන ගැහුවත් දිනන්න පුළුවන්. Then how can we say ලංකාව මේ match එක දිනනවා කියලා? Is it Sri Lanka will win this match or Sri Lanka is going to win this match?
Sri Lanka is going to win this.
Sri Lanka is going to win this match. Why? The place or the instance, the reason why we use will is to talk about a future action based on the speaker's belief, not evidence. But we use going to talk about a future action based on current evidence. That's the difference. So we have already talked about those things. So today is about just getting them in order and discussing it in the traditional way of taking all the tenses in that name order. ඉස්කෝලේදී සහානිත් ක්ලාසස් වලදී ඔයාලට පුරුදු විදිහ අපි ඔය ක්ලාස් එකේ කලින් කරපු විදිහ නෙවෙයිනේ. පිළිවෙලට tenses discuss කරලා යන එක. So අද කරන්නේ ඒ දේ අපිට ඒක අද කරන්න පුළුවන් හේතුව වෙයි. දැන් ඒවා උවමනා පිළිවෙලට ඒවා use වෙන පිළිවෙලට most frequently used tenses were discussed earlier in our class, and today we can just cover everything. Yes, you are already familiar with the main basic and most important concepts that you need to know. So today is about reorganizing them and then putting them in order. To do that, we have to look at what we learned in the very, very beginning. Do you remember this diagram, this categorization, whatever this is? Make a mathematical. It was done on the very first class. Shall I make it a bit bigger? So when it comes to verbs, we had two categories, right? We had lexical verbs, or some can call them main verbs, and then we had the other type, helping verbs and auxiliary verbs. So in tenses, what you are doing or what you have been doing is you looked at how helping verbs and lexical verbs occur together in combination, and when they do, which type goes with which one. Tenses කියලා ඉගෙන ගන්න helping verbs වල මෙන්න මේක ආපුවාම lexical verb එක මොකක්ද use කරන්නේ ඒක මොන form එකද use කරන්නේ කියන දේ. That's why we put them in two categories. And the definition or how to identify which verb is what we did was we just looked at helping verbs first. Okay. Helping verbs නොවන ඒවා lexical verbs කරන්නේ කිව්වේ. We have limited number of helping verbs. So they don't increase. The number doesn't increase. Helping verbs number එක වැඩි වෙන්නේ නැහැ අඩු වෙනවා මිසක් based on usage. That means not just the ones that I have listed here. මේ list කරලා තියෙන ටික විතරක් නෙමෙයි helping verbs වල. තව මොඩයෝ ඉන්නවා. Why do I call them මොඩයෝ? This. How do you pronounce this? Is it models or is it different the way you pronounce it?
Models.
They are models. Models නෙමෙයි models. මොයන් නැදෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒකයි model කියලා හිතන්න මතකෙට. So models are not limited to these. We have another set called semi or semi models. එහෙම set එකක් තියෙනවා. But they are not as frequent as the ones that we are seeing here. So we have modals like dare, need, like, and another one, ought to. They are also modals, but not as frequent as this in modern English. That's why I have not included them here on this diagram, because no need to complicate them on the very first day. But there are a few more which are just going out of use. Like they are not as often used as they used to earlier. Then modals, the most common modals are can, could, shall, should, may, might, must, and they have different functions which we have not completely discussed yet. මෙතන තියෙන modals වල සමහර ඒවා, like we have seen may and might, but the others like would and should, shall, can, could, we haven't discussed them in depth yet, but we are going to. Then in addition to this, we had these primary helping verbs. So when I say be, what are the other words that come to your head? Be කියව මොනවද තව මතක් වෙන දේවල්? You have be that as a V1 and past tense. We have to, was,
Was.
Was were.
and the V3 form is
Been.
been.
Been and being.
ing. It's
B-E-I-N-G,
being.
no?
Right.
Yeah.
Then, is there a difference in the pronunciation? Can you notice it?
Yes, been and being.
Good. So if you are a bit confused about the pronunciation, the difference is when you say been, you have the al-nayanna sound, the n sound. And when you say being, you have this glottal sound, bindu sound, being and being. So just notice the difference. But in many cases, when you're just speaking fast, that difference will be barely noticeable. But knowing it is
Excuse me,
important.
Pivi.
Yes, sir.
That how can we pronounce that human being?
Okay.
So how to?
Yeah. So how do you write it? You write it as human being. So here you have this sound. We will talk about these pronunciation symbols soon. For now, I will use the Sinhala to just transcribe them. So it's being bindu sound like that. So use
Right.
the
Okay.
glottal sound at the end. That's human being. If it was like something like this, then it would be being. එතරන්න මිනිස් බෝංචි වගේ මායා බෝංචි මිනිස් බෝංචි පොළොන් මෑ එහෙම එකක් මම මේ ළඟදී අහුවා පොලේ ගියාම පොළොන් මෑ කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා කියලා. The first time I heard that, I thought all the meh were just the same thing. It's not a vegetable. Fun. Hey, I never used to go to the polar, but last week I was like quite fascinated at how they sell things and how they say things and how they scream out different things to attract customers. That's actually fun. We should come up with an activity like that for English classes. That's kind of interesting for Sri Lankan students who have the exposure to that kind of experience. But just there's a tangent. All right, so we have be. When you say be, that includes am, is, are, was, were, been, and being. Then do, the same logic. It's do, does, did. And done and doing, they are not actually considered helping verbs, but they're also there. And have, been, have, has, had, and having. Then all that is not in the list of helping verbs can be considered to be lexical verbs. So things like eat, run, drink, write, read, understand, believe, they are lexical verbs. Then, since this is not the first time you're saying these things and you have been exposed to different tenses, I will ask you something that is additional to this. When it comes to lexical verbs, we saw a type of lexical verbs called stative verbs. What are they? What is important? What is special about them? These stative verbs. Why do we have them and why should you know about them?
Love,
Verbs like love, What else? Like,
Kind. Kind.
think, find, yes. But find,
Kind. Sir, kind.
no, that is,
Kind.
no. That is not a verb, kind. Kind is an adjective. Karunawanta කියන meaning here, neither.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Then
Yes.
that's an
Yes.
adjective. Then another one would be understand. So that's just a few examples. But what is special about them? What should you think about steady verbs? What can you not do on these steady verbs? Steady verbs ගැන පොඩ්ඩක් දැනගන්න ඕනේ. ඇයි මොනවද ඒවට කරන්න බැරි? කරන්න බැරිම නෙවෙයි. But if you do it, that's not considered accurate in modern English, and that's not considered good English. So if I say, I am loving you, is that right? That's not wrong, but is that 100% correct? No. The reason is we discussed that steady verbs are also called non-ing verbs. Non-ing means ing පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ නැති verbs කියලා. Do you remember that? So there we just use simple present, or that is the non-ing form, even when we are talking about something that is happening right now. මේ වෙලාවේ සිද්ධ වෙන දෙයක් කියනවා වුණත් we don't use ing forms for it, although we learn that we use present continuous or present progressive to talk about things happening at the moment. කතා කරන වෙලාවේ සිද්ධ වෙන දේවල් ගැන කියන්න අපි ing use කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා කියනවා. For these verbs we learned that it's not the case. So that's what I wanted to remind you. But these words, which I marked with an asterisk, another few examples would be, some other few examples would be smell. Smell කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? සුවඳ. When you use it as a verb, සුවඳ බලනවා, මොන හරි ඉඹලා බලනවා. Then there we can have two different meanings if we use it as a steady verb. සුවඳ බලනවා, ඉඹලා බලනවාට අමතරව කෙනෙක්ගෙන් හරි දෙයකින් එන සුවඳ. So let's say there's a bowl of soup bowl එකක් තියෙනවා. අපි ඒකේ සුවඳ බලනවා, then I'm smelling the soup bowl. හැබැයි එහෙම කරන්නේ නැතුව soup එක හොඳට හදලා තියෙනවා නම් මේ ළඟ හිටියත් ඒකේ එනවනේ සුවඳ. Then how do we say මේ soup එක නම් රස පාටයි. This soup is smelling delicious. එහෙම නැත්නම් වෙන විදිහට. How do we say it? Let's ask that from someone. Rohindu, how do we say? මේ soup එක නම් හරි රස සුවඳක් එනවා. මේ soup එකෙන් රස සුවඳක් එනවා.
It smell like very delicious.
It smells delicious. When we say it, it's just one. So we have to add the S at the end of the verb, right? So it smells delicious. Great. Then another steady verb. එතන soup එකේ රස බලලා විතරක් ඉන්නේ නැහැ. රස බලනකොට මේ soup එක රසයි කියලා කියන්නේ කොහොමද? We can simply say this is delicious, but if we use the verb taste කියන verb එකක් use කළා. How do we say මේ soup එක රසයි? Lali.
This soup is taste.
Is නෙමෙයි. This soup tastes delicious නේද? Taste කියන එකේ meaning එකක් තියෙනවා. රස බලනවා සහ රසක් එනවා දෙයකින්. Then how do you say it? This soup
Is tasty.
is tasty. Yes, but then we use the word tasty as an adjective. Rather, I want you to use these exact words, but you have to use the correct grammatical form. This soup, that's one chunk. Then the other verb should be taste. And the adjective that you're going to use is delicious. Then when you put them together.
Smells.
Yes, but then when you say this soup smells delicious, සුවඳ ගැන කතා කරන්නේ. දැන් අපි කතා කරන්නේ රස ගැන.
So it seems delicious.
It seems delicious. අපිට ඒක රස පාටට පේනවා. Now, food
Yes.
is a nice topic to discuss these daily verbs because you can see a food, you can smell a food, then you can taste a food, and also you can touch and feel. But that's not very common. But for some types of food, yes, you can have that. So those are three different things. When you say seem, you can use that to describe appearance, පේනද. When you
Yes.
use the verb taste, you
Mm.
actually describe the taste. දිවට දැනෙන. දිවට කටට දැනෙන. Then when you use the verb smell, you describe I just forgot, the olfactory. Oh, I have forgotten the better word for it. Olfactory senses. නහය සම්බන්ධය. Then සුවඳ දැනෙන. So these are three different things. But when you take those away from food and when you put that to a person, මිනිස්සුන්ගෙන අපිට ගඳ සුවඳ වල දැනෙනවද කවුරු හරි නාන්න කරන්න නැතුව හිටියොත් එහෙම, then we can say you seem dirty. කියනවා නෙවෙයි. You smell dirty, you smell bad. ගඳයි කියලා කියන්නේ. Then we cannot use the word seem. So the same thing applies to that soup. So those words, when you use them in that way, when you say this soup seems delicious, පේන දේ ගැන විතරයි කියන්නේ. When you say this soup tastes delicious, then රස ගැන කියන්නේ. When you say this soup smells delicious, then සුවඳ ගැන කියන්නේ. But those two words, taste and smell, දැනෙන දේ ගැන කියන්න වගේම කෙනෙක් කරන දේ ගැන කියන්නත් පුළුවන්. For example, if you say cousin is tasting the soup, then what's the meaning there? We have the cousin is tasting the soup.
රස බලනවා කසුන්.
Cousin rasa balano. Very good. So the same word, when we use that in the ing form, we have a different meaning. But when we use that without ing in that other context, it has a different meaning. The taste කියන එක රස බලනවා කියන අදහසින් කියනවා නම්, yes, we can use it in the ing form. But when you use the word taste to give the meaning රසක් දෙනවා මෙන්න මේ රසයි කියන idea එකකින් කතා කරද්දී, then you do not use it with ing. Now do you get my point? ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් මම මේ වෙලාවේ සුප් එකක් බොනවා කියලා හිතුවොත් මේ සුප් නෙමෙයි මේ වතුර. So this water tastes like Sprite. මේ වතුර Sprite වගේ රසයි. But I cannot say මේ වතුර මම මේ වෙලාවේ බොද්දි තමයි මට ඔක දැනෙන්නේ. මම මේ බොන ගමන් තමයි simple present වලින් කියන්නේ. But you cannot say this water is tasting like Sprite. Then තේරෙනවද? Tasting use කරන්නේ රස බලනවා කියන අදහසෙදි විතරයි.
Yeah, got it.
Got it? The same thing applies to smell. අපි ගත්තොත් මලක් ඕනේ. අපි post-it notes ටික ගමුකෝ. සමහර post-it notes වලට එක සුවඳ වල ගහලා තියෙනවානේ. So these post-it notes smell like coffee. These post-it notes smell like coffee. What's the meaning of that? මේ post-it notes වලින් එන සුවඳ කෝපි වලින් එන සුවඳ වගේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ post-it notes කෝපි සුවඳයි. Because I spilled some coffee on this, but that's a different thing. But if I say, now I'm smelling these post-it notes, then what's the meaning? I'm smelling.
සුවඳ බලනවා.
මම මේ post-it notes වල සුවඳ බලනවා. But if I say, I smell, එතන මොකක්ද? එක්කෝ මට මොකක් හරි සුවඳක් එනවා මේ වෙලාවේ, එහෙම නැත්නම් මම ගඳයි කියන අදහස කියන්නේ. So these stereo verbs are fun. Like when you use them with an ing verb, it has a different meaning. When you use them without the ing verb, depending on context, it can have different meanings. And the reason why I added these asterisk marks here, think කියන එකත් එහෙමයි. මම හිතන්නේ ඔයා හොඳ කෙනෙක්. මම මේ වෙලාවේ හිතන්නේ, ඒ කියන්නේ මේ වෙලාවේ දැනෙනවා ඔයා හොඳ කෙනෙක් කියලා. But do I say I'm thinking you are a good person or I think you are a good person? Which one is correct? හිතන්නේ ඔයා හොඳ කෙනෙක්.
I think you are a good person.
I think you are a good person. But when you say I'm thinking කියලා, then what is the meaning of the verb think there? එතෙන්දී think කියන verb එකේ meaning එක මොකද්ද? එහෙම කියද්දි I'm thinking කියලා කියද්දි මම මේ වෙලාවේ හිතනවා කල්පනා කරනවා කියලා අපි කියන්නේ. මම මේ කල්පනා කරනවා කියන අදහසෙන් අපි think use කරන්නේ. Yes, you can have ing, but when you use a verb think to give the meaning මම හිතනවා කියන අදහසෙන්, then you don't use the ing verb at the end. You get that, right? So that's the things, or that's all the things that you need to know about verb categorization and why they have different categories. And then we moved on to verb types. But before we go there, do you have any other questions related to this table, or things that you read after that, things that you want to ask? Anything?
TV, can you explain about would? How to use that?
I can, but let's put that for 3 weeks later, because the main
Okay.
reason you would need would is for conditional tenses. I will give you a brief introduction to just give you a kind of like the motivation to look for new things. So
Okay.
the reasons why we have will, the reason why we use it simply is for simple future tenses, right? So I will do that. But the main use case of would coming in place of will is when you report that. That means if you want to say, යසරුවන් මට කිව්වා එයා අද එන්නම් කියලා. දැන් ඔක යසරුවන් මට අද තමයි කිව්වේ. I will come tomorrow. ඔක අද කිව්වේ. මම දැන් ලබන සතියේ කියනවා යසරුවන්ගේ යාළුවෙක්ට යසරුවන් එදා මට කිව්වා එයා හෙට එන්නම් කියලා. හෙට කියලා මම ලබන සතියේ හෙට කියලා කිව්වද ඒ සතිය දැන් බලන්න හෙට නෙවෙයිනේ. වෙන දවසක්නේ. අපි ඒ ටයිම් එක දෙක පැත්තෙන් තියමු කොහොම හරි. මම දැන් අද යසරුවන් කිව්ව දේ ලබන සතියේ වෙන එක නේද කියන්නේ. Then when I do that, I have to put things into a different time frame. And then I cannot use the word will to indicate future, because at that particular moment when I'm saying this to Yasaruan's friend, I'm talking about future in the past. AQA. යසරුවන් මේ දැන් කිව්වදේ මට දැන් ඉඳන් බලනකොට නම් අනාගතේ තමයි. දැන් ඉඳන් බලද්දි හෙට කියන්නේ අනාගතේ. අපි දවස් වලට තියෙන dates දාමුකෝ. So today is the 29th. අද 29 නේ. Then යසරුවන් අදහස් කළේ මොකද්ද? 30 වෙනිදාට එන්නම් කියලා. But when I report this to යසරුවන්'s friend on 5th, මම ලබන 5 වෙනිදාට. Okay, යසරුවන්ගේ යාළුවාට කියනකොට එතකොට යසරුවන්ගේ යාළුවාට මම කියන්නේ යසරුවන් කිව්වා 30 වෙනිදා එන්නම් කියලා. ඒ කියන්නේ 29 වෙනිදා මට යසරුවන් කිව්වා 30 වෙනිදා එන්නම් කියලා. එතකොට 29 වෙනිදා ඉඳන් 30 වෙනිදා දිහා බලනකොට ඒක අනාගතේ තමයි. හැබැයි 5 වෙනිදා ලබන සතියේ 5 වෙනිදා ඉඳලා අද දවස ගැන, අද 29 වෙනිදා ගැන බලනකොට 30 කියන්නේ අතීතයට සාපේක්ෂව අනාගතේ. 5 වෙනිදා ඉඳන් 29 කියන්නේ අතීතේ. එතකොට 29ට සාපේක්ෂව 30 කියන්නේ අනාගතේ. So that's what we define by the term future in the past. So the main use case we use would is for that, to talk about futures in the past. අතීතයට සාපේක්ෂව අනාගත ගැන කතා කරන්න තමයි පළවෙනි use case එක would. That is, so Yasuran says, I will come tomorrow. ඒක අද කිව්වේ. So when I report that, or when I talk about that particular incident in the future, so Yasuran told that he will come on the following day. He would come on the following day. That's the first use case. Then would is used with different conditionals. Conditionals mean, like, if we say something like, if I were the president of Sri Lanka, මම ලංකාවේ ජනාධිපති වුණා නම් මම මොනවද කරන්න කියලා මම කතා කරනවා නම්, is that a practical set of things? No, like I will never go into politics. So this is just hypothetical. හිතේ වගේට සිද්ධියක් විතරයි. අර මට ලෝතරයක් ඇදුනා නම් මං කුරුල්ලෙක් වුණා නම් වගේ පොඩි කාලේ කතා කියන්නේ. So things like that, they are hypothetical, right? So when you talk about those things, we have a concept in English called the subjunctive, or you can just forget that part and think of them as conditions. So if it is a hypothetical condition, then the result of that condition should be said using the conditional tense. Conditional tense means we use would. So the main use case of would is to talk about futures in the past. The second use case would be in conditional tenses. So when it comes to conditional tenses, just like with will, we can have different forms. We can have will and V1. In the same way, we can have would and V1. The same thing continues. Like we can have would and have and V3, just like we have will and have and V3. So if you just look at the name, we have future perfect, which is will have V3. In the same way, we have would have and V3, which is called perfect conditional. So those are the use cases of would, and we will be observing them in depth. The first use case, which is future in the past, we will observe that when we are talking about reported speech. And when we are talking about conditionals, we will look at use cases of would further. When you forget all that, just usage, would is considered a more polite way of expressing things. Like rather than saying, I, like instead of saying, I want that, people use expressions like, I would like a particular thing. So I want a coffee is considered direct, very direct, not impolite, very direct. But the same thing would be considered more polite if you say it as, I'd like a coffee. So those are just usage things, not related to grammar. So if you just quickly recap, would main use case is for futures in the past. Second use case is for conditionals. Third one is in certain expressions that we make for different use cases, like different purposes, really. So one example would be, rather than saying I want, you would use the expression like I oh, what happened? How much did you hear and how much did you miss? What was the last thing that you heard? Can you hear me?
Yes, I think it's 5 seconds off. Yeah.
Uh-huh. All right. So did you get the discussion about would?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Right. So as I told you, when we are doing conditionals and reported speech, we will be going in depth into the grammar behind would. But as I told you, those are the main use cases.
Yeah.
Right?
Got that.
So let's proceed with the verb types, which is not a very difficult part because you're already familiar with voice, verb forms, and how to use them, all that. Right. So when it comes to verb forms, that's where we discussed what passive voice is and how and where to use them. So what is passive voice? Why do we use it? To talk about something that is done to the subject. Thank you. Let's ask that from the smallest person, not smallest, youngest person in the class. Again, why do we use passive voice? What's the use case? Where do we need it?
When the subject is not that needed.
No, we always have a subject in all the sentences. If
I
something,
mean, when the subject is not that important.
no, that is almost correct. Not the subject, Tasandu, the doer, the person who does the action. Because subject isn't always the doer. Subject is what the sentence is about. එහෙමත ගැන subject කියන්නේ කරන කෙනා නෙවෙයි. Subject කියන්නේ
yeah.
වාක්‍ය කවුරු ගැනද මොකක් ගැනද කතා කරන්නේ. Then that is always important. But in some cases, the doer is not important. සමහර වෙලාවට the doer කරන කෙනා වැදගත් නැහැ. අන්න ඒ වගේ තැන්වල we use passive. Can someone give an example using passive? It could be of any tense, like ඕනම tense එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Doesn't matter.
I was injured by my dog.
I was injured by my dog. මාව injured වුණා. මට තුවාල වුණා. මාව තුවාල
I
කළා.
was injured.
හවුද? I was injured. So saying by my dog is not important, but we can add it at the end. But we put more emphasis on the word I කියන එක තමයි මෙතනදී වැදගත්ම අපිට වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. That's why we say it as I was injured by my dog. By my dog හැලුවත් අවුලක් නැහැ. Rather than saying my dog bit me, you can say I was injured by my dog to save the dog. බල්ලව පරිස්සම් කරන්න බල්ලට මිනිස්සු බයින එක නවත්තන්න. බල්ල ගැන කියන එක පැත්තකට දාලා අර මං ගැන වැඩි focus එකක්. මං ගැන emphasis එකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. So that's a very good example. Let's hear another example from Charu. It's after a long time that you're joining, so we'd like to hear what you have to say. A passive example, it could be any tense. Is she here? Maybe not. Charni? Okay, she's there.
we
You can continue, Charni. Just a full sentence in passive. It would be using any tense. It doesn't.
bicycles are repaired.
Bicycles are repaired. Okay, that's good. Bicycles hadana. So bicycles are repaired by. Oh, bicycles are repaired at that shop. Okay, bicycles hadana. But when you say that, what comes to my mind is not old grammar teachers from like 10, 20 years ago. Like those were one of the very famously used examples. Like Sinhaleng අපි ගොඩක් තැන් shops වල එහෙම garages වල bicycle repair කරනු ලැබේ වගේ දේවල් ගහලා තියෙනවා. Have you seen? So there was a time when grammarians or English teachers, they focused on those sentences for examples. So yeah, that's what came to my mind. That's not wrong. It's just something very significant from a particular time in the past. And I was always fascinated about how they came up with those examples. But that's not a wrong sentence. That's fine. It's just not very common nowadays. And what do you say? But that's fine. Let's hear another example from Ms. Harshi. It doesn't have to be simple present. It doesn't have to be present continuous. You can pick any.
Present continuous.
No, it can be any tense. No limitations.
I was not selected for that job.
I was not selected for that job. It's in simple past and present. Okay. So they are very common examples where you don't really think of the doer. Rather, you focus on the action or what happened. So great. So now, if we just quickly summarize or recap what passive is used to talk about an action that was done to the subject. Subject එකට කරපු දේ ගැන කතා කරද්දී අපි passive use කරනවා කියන්නේ අතට subject එක කරපු දේ ගැන කියන්නේ නැහැ. Then when it comes to looking at the verb forms, we notice that like some verbs can have passive forms, but some verbs really cannot. So when it comes to be කියන එකේ කරන දෙයක් එහෙම මොකුත් නැහැනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ ඇත්තටම ගත්තොත් be කියන verb එකට මොකක්ද ගන්න බැරි? Object කියලා එකක් එන්න බෑ. That's what you had in that very first quiz. You had to look at the object of the verb. So that's what we see here. Be කියන එකේ passive form එකක් නෑ, but it has that other quality, the different types of be or the verb forms. So with I, we use am in the present tense. With many, we use are, one, is, then the V1, be, and wasn't. B3 is been. Why are these important? මේක වැදගත් ඇයි? When it comes to creating or thinking what the passive form is, what do? You always pick the V3 form, right? So you have it in all the passive forms. It's a V3 form and it is preceded by. Precede කියන්නේ මොකක්ද වශයෙන්? Precede. Follow කියන එකේ opposite. Precede. Not. It's followed by. it's preceded by a form of what? A form of be depending on the tense. So if it is do, when we need the passive form of that, like we use do with I in the present tense. So this becomes am done because the VI form, the verb form we use with I of be is am. That's the logic that we know. Then when it comes to thinking of the verbs, it's very easy to create this table of all the possible verb forms and then use the ones that we need. So here we have give and it has how many forms? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 into 2, that's 14. 14 and this one, so 15. So it has 15. But a verb like swim. Swim කියන එකට ඔහොම 15ක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද? Like active and passive both. එහෙම දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද swim? Do you remember that idea, that concept? We can have a passive form only if we use that verb to talk about what is done to the subject. So swimming, can we do that on any particular thing or a person? Swim කියන එක අපිට වෙන කෙනෙක්ටවත් දෙයකටවත් කරන්න බෑ කියන්නේ. අපි අනිත් පැත්තෙන් හිතුවොත් ඒක ගැන කතා කරන්න passive form එකක් use කරන්න එහෙම එකක් කරන්න බෑ. For example, when we say I walked, මං ඇවිද්දා, it doesn't have an object. Walk කියන එක අපි කෙනෙක්ටවත් දෙයකටවත් නෙවෙයි කරලා තියෙන්නේ. But when I say I walked my dog, එතකොට walk කියන එකේ ඇවිද්දා කියන meaning එක නෙවෙයි මොකද තියෙන්නේ? When I say I walked my dog, what's the meaning of that sentence, Ravinder? ඇවිද්දේවා. Then when we look at the verb walk, if we ask these questions from that verb, walk කියන එකෙන් අපි ඇහුවොත් what, whom වගේ දෙයක්, then we have an answer for it, and the answer would be the dog. Walk කියන එක අපි කළේ කාටද? නැත්නම් මොකක්ද මොකේද? බල්ලව. එහෙනම් then we have an answer that means it. That verb has an object. That means we can talk about that. We can make that object the subject of a sentence. Verb එකේ object එක අපිට sentence එකක subject එක කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒතර බල්ලව ඇවිද්දේවා. ඇවිද්දවපු කෙනා වැඩක් නැහැ. Then how would we say it? I walked my dog කියන sentence එක මාව නැතුව කරපු කෙනා නැතුව අපි සිද්ධ වෙච්ච වැඩේ විතරක් කරනවා. බල්ලව ඇවිද්දේවා. That's the idea that we want to say. Then how do we say it?
The dog was walked.
The dog was walked. ඔහොම කියන්න පුළුවන්. නේද? එතකොට බල්ලව ඇවිද්දෙව්වා මිසක් බල්ලා ඇවිද්දා කියලා නෙමෙයි කියන්නේ. So that's where we need the passive voice verb, and that's how you use it. And not all verbs can have all these passive forms. Things like swim. Swim කියන දේ අපි එහෙම කෙනෙක්ටවත් දෙයකටවත් කරනවා කියන අදහසින් දැනට පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ නැති නිසා it cannot have this second passive voice column. So don't go creating ones for all the verbs, but if you need, this is how you do it. You just focus on the form of be depending on which verb tense or verb type, verb category that is, and you always have the V3 form in all the passive voice forms. All right, cool. So if you are interested in remembering the name of these verb forms, they are given on these slides, but I don't consider them to be very important, so I'm not going to take too much time there. Then this is the important part. On your first day, we discussed this. Possible verb combinations. That means what are the different methods we can combine helping verbs and main verbs. And I told you, this is going to cover many of your issues, many of your doubts that you have, and this will help to clarify them. And this will give you the power, the ability to see whether you have any mistakes in your grammar. මේක දන්නවා කියන්නේ ඔයාලා කියන sentences වල mistakes තියෙනවද, issues තියෙනවද, ඒවා වැරදිද හරිද කියන දේ pick කරන්න power එක තියෙනවා කියන එක. So when you are not sure of a particular set of or 2 or 3 verbs that occur together, then you can see whether that is a possible combination. If it is not, then it's very likely that there is a mistake there. So we discussed this on your very first day with that idea in mind, and we will look at a few examples and see how these are applied. But just a quick reminder is be කියලා මෙතන කියන්නේ am is are was been being ඔය සේරම forms ටික එහෙම එකක් આવොත් ඊට පස්සේ එන්න පුළුවන් the most frequent type of verb is an ing form. am is are was වගේ form එකක් ඇවිල්ලා ඊට පස්සේ verb එකක් එනවා නම් එන්න පුළුවන් වැඩිම chance එකක් තියෙන්නේ ing form එකක් ගැන. Then the second one would be a V3 form to indicate a passive verb. Passive verb එකක් කියන එක පෙන්වන්න V3 යන පුළුවන්. That's why when someone says my mother was cooked වගේ දෙයක් කිව්වොත් ඒක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම වැරදිලා තියෙන chance එක ඇයි ඒ? My mother was cooked කිව්වොත් ඒක meaning එක මොකද්ද? මිස් අජන්ත.
අම්මව උයලා.
අම්මා වඩේලා තියෙන්නේ. That's a very common sentence I saw when I was teaching beginner level students. So I'm not criticizing or laughing here, but what I have seen is that again beginner level එකක ගොඩක් මුලින්ම ඉගෙන ගන්න level එකේ students ලාට තියෙන issue එකක් තමයි ඒක. සිංහලෙන් අපි past tense හදන්න එක එක වචන දානනේ කලාය ඔය වගේ දේවල්. ඉතින් ඉංග්‍රීසි වලදී යාට හරියට මීට උනේ නැතිකොට ඇයි එහෙම වෙන්නේ කොහොමද කරන්න කියන දේ. එතකොට කරන වැරද්දක් ඒක. ඒ වැරද්දේ තියෙන බරපතලකම තමයි it changes the voice. එකකින් voice එක වෙනස් වෙන නිසා. voice එක වෙනස් වෙනවා කියන්නේ මේ පැත්තට කරන්න ඕනි කාරණාව අනිත් පැත්තට හරනවා ඕනි was cooked my mother cooked අම්මා ඉව්වා my mother was cooked අම්මාව ඉව්වා. Did you get that? So that's why we start with verb combinations and show you that these things can happen. And another combination that we can have with be is we can have be and to and the bare infinitive or V1 form. ඒක මොන වගේ examples වලින් කියුසනේ? මොන වගේ තැනකද ඔක දැක්කේ? I have already given the answer arrangements and formal or formal arrangements. But if you give an example, can you give me a sentence with this pattern? If you work very closely with banks and bank related documents or legal documents or business related documents, I'm pretty sure you have seen this. Or in tourism. Can you give an example there? Anyone?
So I also tell you.
Yes, that's an example. It's not actually a formal arrangement, but it's an arrangement. So I was supposed to tell you, මම ඔයාලට එක කියන්න නියමිතව තිබ්බා මම ඒක ඔයාලට කියන්න හිතන් හිටියා. මම ඒක ඔයාලට කියන්න හිටියා වගේ idea එකක්. We can do that. The other instance or the example that I mentioned with formal arrangements of business or banking related thing is, do you get those notifications and stuff that you are to settle your dues before this particular date? You are to settle. Then you have that idea. Or else if you want to say, the guests are to arrive at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Guests are to arrive. Then again, you're talking about an arrangement that has been made. So that. And another example Mr. Ajanta brought forward. I was to tell you, or he was to come here at 10, but he hasn't come yet. Yeah, the height of the හැබැයි තාම ඇවිල්ලා නැහැ. මම ඔයාලට කියන්න හිතන් හිටියා but මට අමතක වුණා. I was to tell you but I forgot. So those are that set of combinations. Then we came across this do and V1. So forms of do, that means do, does and did, and the following verb has to be always V1. That's why we do not say did you wanted it. එහෙම කියන්න බැරි ඇයි? Did you wanted it? ඔයාලට ඒක ඕනේ වුණාද කියලා කියන්නේ did you wanted it කියන්නේ වෙන විදිහකට දෙයක් කියන්න ඕනේ.
Did you want?
Did you want it? Did you want it? Why? Did කියලා අපි කලින් use කරලා තියෙනවා. Then the following verb has to be in V1. We cannot use the ed form. But if we want to say ඔයාට ඒක ඕනේ වුණා, then how do you say it? You
If
You were wanted.
එතකොට ඔයා ඕනේ වුණා කියලා නේද කියන්නේ? Passive
Yeah.
නේද? ඔයාට ඒක ඕනේ වෙලා තිබ්බා. ඔයාට ඒක ඕනේ වුණා. Then
You wanted.
you wanted it. When you say you were wanted, that's a different meaning, but
Yeah,
you
got that. Yeah.
wanted
It's
it.
passive voice.
Yes. And if you want to emphasize that, මන් දන්නවා ඒක ඔයාට ඕන වුණා තමයි කියලා. ඒ වගේ දෙයක්. දැන් you wanted it කියලා මං කිව්වම අර කියන නෑ නෑ මට ඒක ඕන නෑ. එතකොට අපි තද කරලා කියනවා නෑ ඔයාට ඒක ඕන වුණා කියනවා. Then how do we do that? How do we emphasize it?
I do know. That means
Without adding many words, just adding one. එක වචනයක් විතරක් add කරලා අපේ sentence එක තමයි you wanted it. ඔයාට ඒක ඕන වුණා. Now we want to make the emphatic form of it. We just
you do
add one.
want.
You did want.
You did want it. We are talking about a past incident.
Past tense. Yeah.
So you did want it. හැබැයි අපිට present වෙනවා නම් ඔයාට ඒක ඕනේ. You want it. දන්න ඔයාට ඒක ඕනේ කියලා. Then I know you do want it or you do want it. Then yeah, that is correct, Ms. Arjun. But since this is in the past, we use the past helping verb. So you wanted it or then we want to emphasize it. You did want it. Got it?
Yes.
So may do did some of V3 then is it V3 did oh V1 oh V1 no so
Did
did I
and
you
yes.
did go
You did want it. When we just combine them in the past tense, you wanted it. It's V2. Because when we have ed, that is the same form for the V2 form and V3. So that's why
It's,
yes.
we heard that wanted. It's want it, no?
Yeah,
That's right.
want it.
He asked that.
Yes, that's it. So when you say want and it together, it sounds like wanted. Right? So the
yes,
sentence
yes,
actually,
sir.
got it? Do I need to write it? So when I say you wanted it, when we emphasize it, you did want it. So when we say these two together, it sounds like wanted. That's it. So you wanted it, you did want it, not wanted. We don't have ed here. All right. That's actually fun. Cool. Now let's move on to the next two combinations and look at some examples and go for the fun part. That's the revision of tenses. Right. Then forms of have, that means they have, has, and had. And then what's the form we can have? It's V3. And also having has the same idea. So if we have a form of have, has, or had, or having, then the following verb will always be V3. Examples. I have done it. ඒක කරලා තියෙන ඒක කලයින් පස්සේ කියන idea එක දෙන්න අපිට we can use something called perfect gerund. We will talk about gerunds later, but this is simple. Like you can just remember it as a pattern for now. Having done that, කියලා කිව්වොත්, you can use it for starting sentences in a shorter manner. මෙහෙම නම් කියන්න ඕනේ. දැන් මිනිස්සු ගොඩක් හම්බුනායින් පස්සේ කියන්නේ මිනිස්සු ගොඩකට කතා කරලා එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් එක මට ආයින් පස්සේ මට හිතෙච්ච දේ තමයි alright? So having met many people in my job or in my career, I finally decided to having met many people in my career, I finally decided to go abroad. Or my career එකේ මගේ job එකෙන් මම සල්ලි ගොඩාක් හොයාගත්තට පස්සේ මම හිතුවා retire වෙන්න. So if you wanted to say that, you can මෙන්න මේ වැඩේ කළායින් පස්සේ මේක complete කරගත්තයින් පස්සේ මට කරන්න වෙච්ච දේ වගේ idea එකක් කියනවා. You can use that this as a pattern for now, but the grammar topic is perfect gerunds. We will come across that in the future, but මේක සරලයි එහෙම topic එකක් නැතුවත් ඔළුවේ තියාගන්න පුළුවන් use කරන්න පුළුවන් දෙයක්. Having earned a lot of money, I decided to retire. Having earned a lot of money, සල්ලි ගොඩක් හොයාගෙන දැන් ඉවරුණා පස්සේ නිසා I decided to retire. Another one. එයාගේ පවුලේ කට්ටියව හම්බ වුණාට පස්සේ තමයි මට තේරුණා මෙයාගේ මේ ගතිගුණ කොහෙන්ද ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. Having met his parents, I realized where he got these characteristics or where he got these traits. Do you want to try an example and see whether you can do it? ඔයාලට ඒක කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා try කරන්න ඕනේ example එකක් මට කියන්න. You just use having and then the V3 form and then you complete the idea and then you add the next clause. දැන් අවුරුදු ගාණක් රටේ ඉඳලා මට තේරුණු දේ තමයි කියලා කියන්න ඕන නම් කොහොමද කියන්නේ? දැන් අවුරුදු 3ක් තිස්සේම රටේ ඉංග්‍රීසි එකෙන් මට තේරුණු දේ තමයි මම තේරුම් අරන් තියෙන්නේ වගේ දෙයක් කියනවනේ.
Having I leaving the country.
Having නෑ දැන් අපි රටක ඉන්නවා. I am in England. එහෙනම් I have been in England. එහෙනම් been අපිට අවශ්‍ය V3 form එක එහෙනම්
Yes, having been.
having been මම අවුරුදු 3ක් තිස්සේ ඉංග්‍රීසි වල ඉඳි තේරුම් අරන් ඊට පස්සේ මම තේරුම් ගත්ත දේ තමයි කියලා කියනවනම් how do you say it? Having
Having been for 3 years.
Having been in England for 3
In
years.
England. Yeah.
මම දැන් තේරුම් අරන් තියෙන්නේ කියලා complete කරනවනම් I understood, or else you can say, having been in England for 3 years, I have understood da 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 da. තවත් දෙයක් කියනවනම් දැන් අවුරුදු 15ක් තිස්සේ වගේ යාළුවා හැටියට මම ඔයාව විශ්වාස කරනවා. So how do you say it?
Having been your
Friend for 15 years.
for 15 years.
මම ඔයාව විශ්වාස කළ යුතුමයි. මම ඔයාව විශ්වාස කරන්න ඕනේ.
I have to
trust you, or I must trust you.
I must trust you.
So it's a useful pattern, so you don't have to wait until the grammar lesson to learn it. So that's another use case of have and V3. We have the same verb combination there. Have, a form of have, which is having, and then we have the V3 form. That's why we use been. Then we have a form of to and V1. Vyakaran siddhana කියන idea එක. Then one we haven't discussed in depth yet, modals. They also have a V1 form after it. Modal එකක් නම් ආවේ. Modal එකට පස්සේ එන්නේ V1 form එකක්මයි. Then some other combinations that you can just keep in mind, not as rules, but some observations. In most cases, after 2, we have V1. ගොඩක් තැන්වලදී V1 එකකට පස්සේ එන්නේ 2 එකකට පස්සේ එන්නේ V1. ඒ කියන්නේ I want going කියන්නේ I want to go. I want to going කියන්නේ බෑ. I want to go. I don't like කියලා to දැම්මත් singing කියන්නේ I don't like to singing කියන්නේ බෑ. But you can say I don't like singing. But when you say to, I don't like to, then it becomes sing. So some observations that you have there. Then for use කළොත් අපි V1 use කරන්නේ නැහැ. මෙහෙම කියන්න බෑ. I went there for dance. Anyway, I went there for dancing. Of our it V1 නැහැ. Fed up of go. I'm fed up of learn කියන්න බෑ. I'm fed up of learning different I'm fed up of meeting stupid people. ඒ වගේ හැබැයි මෙහෙම කියන්න බෑ. I'm fed up of meet කියන්න බෑ. ඒ වගේම I'm fed up එක්ක I'm fed up of using I'm fed up to කියන්නත් බෑ. We'll talk about this when it comes to talking about different prepositions after particular verbs. They are considered as fixed expressions and fixed types of expressions. Like expression එක මේ pattern එකෙන් මයි යන්නේ කියන දේ. But before going there, you can easily find this in that book that I gave you for free. That book that I compiled some time ago. ඒකේ අර අන්තිම column එකේ තියෙන මේ වගේ එන්න පුළුවන් patterns. So some things I observed while doing that are these like if it is to, then in most cases the following verb is in V1. If it is for, it's ing. Of, then again it's ing. So those are some observations you can incorporate when trying to see whether what you are saying, whether what you wrote, whether what you are going to say is correct or not grammatically. ඒක අර ඔයාලා කියන දේවල් හරිද වැරදිද කියලා ඔයාලා check කරගන්න trick එකක් shortcut එකක් විදිහට use කරන්න පුළුවන් දෙයක් තමයි අපි මේ පළවෙනි දවසේ discuss කරපු හැමදාම අවශ්‍ය කරන දේ. Let's look at some sentences and see how they are going to be used. All right. So in this first sentence, they are going out tonight. Is this right? මේ sentence එක හරිද මොකද වැරදි තියෙනවද? Let's look at the verb phrase. It's are
correct.
going. It is correct. So we have only one couple or verbs jodu ekite, and it follows 1.1, which is be and ing. So this is correct. Then the next one, let's highlight the verb phrase has been standing there. Then we have two couples. We have the first one and then the second one. First one is has been, that's a form of have, and V3. This is 3.1. This is correct. Second one, it's be and ing. This is the first one. So this is correct. So that is also correct. Verb phrase. She should have been studying. All right. And also we have another observation of watching TV. So should have been.
Excuse me, P, what is the tense there?
This one. It's
Yeah.
not a tense per se, but a perfect model. We have should have. We can say she should study. That has one meaning. When you say she should have studied, that's another one. Then the other one is she should have been studying. That's another one. They are not tenses. They are just variations of models. Just like you have these variations in future tenses. So in future, you have I will do that. It is synonym, very similar to I will do that. I should do that. Then we have I will be doing that. Then you can have I should be doing that. Will changes to should. Then the other one, I will have done that. Then you can have I should have done that. So will is a model, should is a model. So they have the same concepts. Then that is future perfect when you say I will have done.
Can you explain the meaning, PV?
In the future one or the model one? In future, when
In
you say,
this example?
okay, yeah, I'll get there.
Okay.
You say, I will have been doing that. That is future perfect continuous. So in the same way, we can replace will with should. I should have been doing that. So when I say I will have been doing that, මට මම ඒක කර කර ඉඳී වගේ idea එකක් කියවෙන්නේ. ඒ වෙලාවෙදී මම ඒක කර කර ඉඳලා තියා අවුරුදු දෙකක් තිස්සේ පැයක් තිස්සේ වගේ. But when you say I should have been doing that instead of doing this, මට ඒ වෙලාවේ අර දේ කර කර ඉන්න තිබ්බේ මේක කරනවට වඩා. So when you use should, obligation එකක් එක්කල යුතුයි කියන idea කියන්නේ I should go there මම දැන් යන්න ඕනේ. But when you say I should have gone there, මට යන්න තිබ්බා. හැබැයි දැන් කරලාද? නැහැ. It's a past obligation which was not fulfilled. අතීතයට අදාළව මම කළ යුතුව තිබිච්ච දෙයක්. හැබැයි කරලා නැහැ. That's why I say I should have gone that or I should have done that. මට කරන්න තිබ්බා. So in the same way, I should have been doing that. මට අර වෙනුවෙන් කරපු දේ වෙනුවට කියන්නේ මේ කියන දේ කරලා නැහැ. මට මෙන්න මේ දේ කර කර ඉන්න තිබ්බා ඒ වෙලාවේ. හැබැයි කරලාද ඒක? නැහැ. ඒ වෙනුවට වෙන මොනවා හරි තමයි කරලා තියෙන්නේ. So that's what we see here. She should have been studying instead of watching TV. TV බල බල ඉන්න වෙනුවට එයාට ඒ වෙලාවේ පාඩම් කර කර ඉන්න තිබ්බා. එයා කළ යුතුව තිබුණ දේ තමයි පාඩම් කරන එක ඒ වෙලාවේ. කියලා ඒක කියන්නේ. Is that clear?
Got it.
Okay, wonderful. Then we have these three sets. So first one is a model, and then should have is V1. So is this correct? Yes. Second one, it's a form of. Now I'm going fast with these because this is something that we did 2 times earlier. But still, if you have any questions related to what I'm doing and what I'm revising for you, let me know. Then have and then the following verb is been, which is also a V3. And do you remember the number? It's this one, right? Have and V3. So that is correct. Third one, we have a form of be and ing. Then this is also correct. So this green thing is right. Here also we have that observation of an ing. We saw it here, right? We have this of an ing. So after the preposition of, the most common observation is the following verb will be an ing form. Therefore, it is also correct. That's why we can say that this is grammatically correct. All the combinations are right. Any questions there?
Yeah, here that yes, I'm sorry. Here that here studying with ing we have to put have been. No? Because of have been we have to put ing.
Yes. Yeah, because we have used the form of be. Then the next one should be ing because this is not passive, right? So let's try something else. Let's just remove this. So we have only this. She should have been studying. That's all we have. Now, what's another way we can change this sentence? If we just say, she should have been studied, then what is the meaning? If you use V3 there.
Studied.
She should have been studied.
ඉගෙන ගත යුතුව තිබුණා.
No.
ඇයට
නෑ.
ඇයව
ඇයව ස්ටඩි කරන්න.
ඇයව
යාව අධ්‍යයනය කරන්න තිබ්බා. කරලාද? නෑ.
She should have.
She should have been studied. අපිට ස්ටඩි පැත්තකින් අපි සාමාන්‍ය මිනිසුන් අධ්‍යයනය කරනවා කියන එක කොමන්ලි කරන
ඇයව අධ්‍යයනය කරන්න තිබුණා කියන එක.
Yes. If we use a different verb, suggest a verb something like promote. යාව promote කරන්න තිබ්බා. හැබැයි දැන් කරලාද? කරලා නැහැ. She should have been promoted. යාව promote කරන්න තිබ්බා. යාව තනතුරෙන් උසස් කරන්න තිබ්බා. හැබැයි කරලා නැහැ. Past obligation that was not fulfilled. Past obligation එකක් ඒක fulfill වෙච්ච නැති එකක් කරපු නැති එකක් සම්පූර්ණ
It's
වෙන්නේ
under
නැති.
passive. Yeah, it's under
And it
passive.
is a passive. Yeah, when you use V3 here, then it is passive. But here we are not using V3, we are rather using ing. So it's not passive. She should have been studying. යාට පාඩම් කර කර ඉන්න තිබ්බේ. එහෙම. හැබැයි if we replace this with the V3, then the idea becomes passive and that becomes something that is done to the subject. Another example would be යාව එයාට අහුම්කම් දෙන්න තිබ්බාට. ඔයා පැත්තකින් තිබ්බා. එයාට අහුම්කම් දෙන්න තිබ්බ මීට වඩා. She should have been listened to දාන්න ඕනේ අපිට කෙනෙක් අහුම්කම් දෙනවා කියන sense. She should have been listened to. හැබැයි කවුරුත් අහුම්කම් දීලාද? නැහැ. එයාව select කරගන්න තිබ්බා. Select කරලාද? නැහැ. How do you say it? එයාව select කරන්න තිබ්බා. How do you say that?
She should have been.
She should have been selected.
She should have been selected, but that means යාව select කළේ නැහැ. වෙන කෙනෙකු select කළේ. When we use should have and the V3 form, then that means it. මෙහෙම කිව්වොත් මොකද්ද තේරුම? She should have selected. ඒ මොකද්ද කියන්නේ? Been නේද? She should have selected.
ඇයට තෝරගන්න තිබුණා.
එයාට තෝරගන්න තිබ්බ. ඇයට තෝරගන්න තිබ්බා. හැබැයි දැන් තෝරගන්නවා කියන වැඩේ කරලා තියෙන්නේ වෙන කෙනෙක් එයාටද නැත්නම් එයාමද?
එයාට.
එයා හැබැයි තෝරගෙනද මේකදී නැද්ද? Should have කියලා use කළාම. We use should have to talk about past obligations. It doesn't always have to be passive. So we can simply say she should have come. එයාට එන්න තිබ්බා. හැබැයි ඇවිල්ලාද? නැහැ.
Should mean there is no result, no? Because of we
No,
put
no,
should,
no. No, it's not that. We use should have because it was not fulfilled. Should use current obligation එකක් වෙන්නන්න. Should have use කරපුවම past obligation එකක් which was not fulfilled. Fulfill උනේ නැති obligation එකක්. So if we say I should have done this. I should have done this again.
කළ යුතු තිබුණා මට.
මම ඒක කරන්න තිබ්බා. හැබැයි කරලාද?
නැහැ.
නැහැ. Do you get that? So that's a variation of it which we haven't discussed in class yet. You may have come across this in TA meetings, teacher meetings, one-to-one meetings, but we haven't done this in the class yet. So we are planning to do it when we are discussing models. But yeah, just taking that example here. Shall we continue with the slides?
Yeah.
Oh, another one. Then all to make තනියම කරන්නත් පුළුවන් එක. So we have should have been given. Is this right?
Yeah.
Yes, we have should have, which is a model and have, and been and given. First one, second one, third one. First one is a model and B1 says that is correct. Second one, have and B3. This is correct. Third one, B and V3. This is 1, 2. This is correct. So the whole thing is correct. Right. Now comes verb tenses. ගොඩාක් තියෙනවනේ. What are the ones that we have completed? What are the ones that we have discussed? We discussed simple present. We discussed present progressive. We discussed present perfect. We discussed simple past, past progressive, past perfect, simple future, and that's all. Others we haven't discussed in class yet. So the most common tenses: simple present. Oh, let's use blue. Simple present, you must know it. Present progressive, you must know it. Simple past, you must know it. Past progressive, you must know it. Past perfect, you must know it. Simple future, you must know it. And future perfect, you must know that too. Why didn't I highlight present perfect? Because without present perfect, you can survive. Many Americans have been doing that, and it's not a must, but for you, you should know it because it's not difficult for Sri Lankans to understand, and it's not that hard. So those are the most important ones or topics of discussion. We haven't covered future perfect in the class. We were supposed to do that when we discussed future, but we missed it that day. So we will have in-depth discussions about them in coming classes. But for now, these are the most important ones that we have discussed. And yeah, one more thing that I personally think is very important and that we should discuss is present perfect progressive, but it's not as difficult or as confusing as some people pointed out it to be. So we will also discuss that. All right. So this is the topics that we are going to discuss. And looking at the time, it's already 9:05. I don't suppose we'll be able to complete all the topics today because we have only like 1 hour, but I will try to discuss the number of topics that we can actually do. And also I will share another video to your WhatsApp group and your Google Classroom, but it is like 5 hours long. So you don't have to watch it. But there we have the same discussion in depth for 5 hours, like Sarvaratrika Pirideshna on tenses. So if you want, you can watch it, but you know, let's continue the things that we missed today at the coming week too. But if you have the time and yes.
Before the class, I searched that I was there with that time.
You were there. All right.
Yeah. And till the midnight. Yes.
Well, it was about 3 or 4 when I actually finished doing it. So you left me that day.
Yes.
Yes, legend. Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay, for being there that day. It was like a fun thing that I wanted to attend, and I'm really happy that we could do it.
Kind of determination.
Yeah, it's not easy sitting at one place for 5 hours and just talking.
That sessions inspired me actually to attend your classes
Oh.
Because I never had that kind of long hours sessions.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So this is a nice thing. If you can maybe get a printout of this slide and the following slide and the one after it. So these 3 slides, these A4 sheets, and if you can just cut out the blue part, these blue boxes, and paste them together on one sheet and maybe put it somewhere on your board. I have different things that I have for like quick revision and stuff. So I have these things which are relevant for my work and these things which are just to-dos and stuff. Oh, did I mess up the camera? No. So you can have something like that. And this is like a revision or a summary of all the things that you should know about tenses. And after some time, when you are familiar with what you need to remember, you can just take it down. So yeah, this is like an outline or outlook of what we are going to discuss, what we have learned, and the different use cases of those. When it comes to those main sessions, what you had were like you had a topic, a title, a use case, and then you had a timeline and some examples there, and the structure. But what I believe is the structure is not the most important part, rather the use case and where you use them, because in many cases that students come across, they use different tenses just because they feel like that is the translation. Like they think of an idea in singular and then they just think of the closest English tense and then use that to say it. For example, මං අද උදේ පැය 3ක් විතර මේ වැඩේ කරන්න try කළා. So you think of පැය 3ක් විතර කරන්න try කළා duration. How much? එහෙම හිතලා you say something like, not you, but students in general. I had been trying to do this for 3 hours this morning. That's not right. Or someone might think it is, I was trying to do this for 3 hours this morning. Then again, that is also not correct because that's not the use case. You can simply say, I tried to do this for 3 hours this morning. That is just that. So you don't get to that if you are not focused on use cases, like the usage, where you use it. Rather, if you just think of the singular meaning which you learned while learning a tense and then use that singular meaning to say that sentence in English, and that's how you introduce this issue, this problem into your speech, into what you say. Do you get what I'm saying, or do you need more examples to understand why this is important rather than just remembering the structures and singular meanings? So my advice to you is, when it comes to learning tenses or different structures that you use to say different ideas, do not focus on the singular translation or singular meaning, and then look at how we say it in English. A good example would be, අපේ පැත්තට වහිනවා. That sentence, when you say it in singular, අපේ පැත්තට වහිනවා, it does not carry a direct relationship to either of any of the tenses that we have in English, right? So how, like in your head, translate this sentence අපේ පැත්තට වහිනවා into English. How many different ways are there that you can translate that?
There is a heavy rain in our area.
There is a
It's
heavy
raining
rain.
here.
It's raining here. What else?
It is raining here.
It is raining here. But is that all? අපේ පැත්තට වහිනවා. Is that all? No, right? ඒකසි ඇයි present continuous දෙයක් කියලා මේ වෙලාවේ සිද්ධ වෙන දෙයක් කියලා කිය කොහෙද කියලා අපේ පැත්තට වහිනවා කිව්වම දැන් හිතන්නකෝ වහින්න නැති පැති තියෙනවානේ කාන්තාර පැත්තක් වගේ අපි හිතමු. ඒතර කාන්තාර පැත්තේ කෙනෙක් එක්ක කතා කරලා දැන් අපේ පැත්තෙන් වහිනවා. ඔයාලා පැත්තට වහින්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වගේ අදහසක් කියද්දි is that in present continuous or is that simple present?
Simple present.
It's a simple present, right?
Yeah.
So that's
It
just one.
rains.
It rains in our area. So it doesn't have to be in present continuous.
Yeah, that means it doesn't mean that moment when we at that moment rain.
Yes.
Moment.
it's not talking about a particular event that's happening at the moment of speaking, rather something that happens in a particular time of the year. It could be. So this is April, no May. So these days, oh, it rains.
Maybe
in
I
Sri Lanka.
think that the thing is we are always try to use that usual things, no? That's
Yes,
why we are,
that
yeah.
is true. So when we have a particular English singular sentence, we just think of it in the way that we are most familiar with.
Yeah,
Another
that's the
one
thing.
is, yes.
Yeah.
And also at school or maybe in many classes, how you learn tenses is when you say cousin is singing a beautiful song, how do you translate that into singular? You would say cousin lassana
Sinduak කියමින් සිටියා.
කියමින් සිටිනවා. But
සිටිනවා.
it can be translated in many
Yeah.
ways into singular. Cousin is singing that song. Cousin අර සින්දුව කියනවා. හැබැයි මෙහෙම කියන්නත් පුළුවන් නේද? අපි ඔක cousin is singing that song. So what is your version of translation that? Cousin අර සින්දුව කියමින් සිටිනවා කියන දේ. So that is like someone can argue, that is just the writing where we can just translate it as cousin සින්දුව කිය ඉන්නවා කියලා ඒක select කරන්න පුළුවන්. But is that the only translation we can have for that sentence? Tell me. ඒකද කරන්න පුළුවන් එකම විදිහට. ඒක ලිඛිත භාෂාවෙන් කියනවා නෙවෙයි සිංහල භාෂාවෙන් කියනවා කියන එක හරි. හැබැයි ඒ දෙකත් විතරද? තව විදිහ නැද්ද ඒක කියන්න පුළුවන් නේද? ඒ වචන ටිකේ තේරුම වෙන ඒ වචන ටිකේ තේරුම වෙන එකක් වෙන්නත් බැයිද?
Yes, it can be.
Can you try to give an example?
කසුන් සින්දුව කියනවා.
Cousin සින්දුව කියනවා. Cousin අර සින්දුව කියනවා. Very good. තව විදිහක්.
කසුන් සින්දුවක් කියනවා.
අර සින්දුව කියන්නේ cousin කියලා කියන්නත් පුළුවන් නේද?
අර සින්දුව කියන්නේ කසුන්. Yeah.
ඒ වචන ටිකමයි. But how do you say it? You don't change the English set of words. You just say cousin is singing that song. So it can have cousin is singing that song. Cousin තමයි අර සින්දුව කියන්නේ. If you say cousin is singing that song, cousin අර සින්දුව කියනවා. But it can also say cousin අර සින්දුව කියනවා. Or cousin අර සින්දුව කියනවා. Or cousin අර සින්දුව කියමින් සිටිනවා. So it comes to translating one English sentence into singular. There can be multiple ways, and in the same way, different singular ideas can be said using just one English sentence, and also one singular idea can be said in multiple ways in English. And the last thing, one singular sentence can be interpreted into different tenses in English. So don't remember tenses using their English or singular translations. Don't use either way. Just focus on the usage of these English tenses in English and apply that based on what kind of idea that you want to say. Alright? ඒ කියන්නේ සිංහලෙන් කිව්වොත් අර සිංහලෙන් ඔයාලා tenses වලට අදාළ වාක්‍ය වල තේරුම මතක තියාගෙන ඉන්න එකෙන් ඉංග්‍රීසි වලට ගලපන්න හදන්න එපා. English වලදී tenses ඉගෙන ගන්නකොට we paid a lot of attention into the usage or use cases where we can use these particular tenses. And whenever you want to use a particular tense to give an idea, think of that use case, not the translation. Okay? You get my point? That's why I asked you to print these and hang them somewhere, and then they will go to your head. Any questions, any issues, any clarifications?
It means we have to think in English, not the Sinhala, no? Before the school.
Yes, it's not thinking in
But
English.
most of I used to follow that the Sinhala meaning. So that's the thing.
That is the issue, and that is a difficult part as teachers.
Always we are thinking and always we are following the Sinhala meaning.
Yes, that can take you into different troublesome areas. That's what I showed using those examples. And when you do that, it's very likely that you will make mistakes when it comes to picking the correct usage. One example. Now, are you all familiar of the O-level paper, English language paper? So when you look at those papers, or business English classes, or the IELTS exam, or any other exam that is like that, where you have to describe graphs and charts. Have you seen them? Have you done that?
Yes.
So ඒක
Yes.
ඉස්කෝලේදී වෙන්න පුළුවන් එහෙම නැත්නම් බිස්නස් කරද්දී වෙන්න පුළුවන් ඔයාලා report එකක් describe කරද්දී වෙන්න පුළුවන් ඔයාලගේ job එකේදී වෙන්න පුළුවන් හිතන්නකෝ මෙහෙම දෙයක් now you are looking at you have an ice cream shop ඔයාලා ice cream shop එකක් තියෙනවා ඒ ice cream shop එකට ගිය මාසෙ පුරාවට customers ලා ආව විදිහ ගැන bar chart එකක් දීලා තියෙනවා. So on Monday you have a particular number of customers and on Tuesdays you have this number. ඒ විදිහට සඳුදා දවස්වලට මෙච්චරක් ආවා ගිය මාසේ අඟහරුවාදට මෙච්චරක් ආවා විදිහට තියෙනවා. So Friday ගොඩාක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. දැන් අපි සිංහලෙන් කතා කරනකොට මෙහෙම නේද කතා කරන්නේ. සඳුදා මිනිස්සු මෙන්න මිනිස්සු අපි කියමුකෝ 35ක් මැද නේද අයිස්ක්‍රීම් ෂොප් එකට සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කී දෙනෙක් එනවද දවසකට? Just give me a rough number so I can work with them. Let's say 100. සඳුදා 100ක් ආවා. අඟහරුවාදා 120ක් ආවා. අපි ඔක විස්තර කරනකොට අපි ඔක describe කරනකොට අපි සිංහලෙන් කියන්නේ මෙහෙම නේද? මේ අයිස්ක්‍රීම් ෂොප් එකට ගිය සඳුදා සෙනග 100ක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. අඟහරුවාදා 125ක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. දැන් ඔය අපි මේ කියද්දි we say ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා ඔය වගේ අදහස් වලින් කියන්නේ. Without thinking like inspired students like විදියට හිතන්නේ නැතුව අර පුරුදු පරණ විදියට හිතුවොත් ඔක කොහොමද ඔයාලා කියන්නේ?
perfect
present perfect වලින් නේද? ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා කියලා නේ කියන්නේ. so එහෙම කිව්වොත් කොහොමද ඉංග්‍රීසි වලින් කියන්නේ? ගිය සතියේ සඳුදා මෙන්න මෙච්චර මිනිස්සු 100ක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. So 100 people have come to this shop last Monday කියලා නේද කියන්න හිතුනේ. එනට ඒක හරියද?
Wrong. It's wrong.
Why? Now you know why it is wrong. Tell me.
We can use, I think, past tense. So
Yes, you can use simple past and you should use simple past. And I'm asking why. Now we come to that thing. I will show that here. So it gives you kind of like a reference point. So I will just draw a timeline to help you understand and explain it. While I do that, try to remember the reason why we can't do it. We did discuss it. So I want to check your memory. So I have two timelines. And now when we say yes, Sanduda, Minisu Siyakawa, that's just a finished action, right? A finished action in the past. So when it comes to simple past, we used that to talk about finished actions in finished time. When it is present perfect, we use that to talk about finished actions which are still relevant, or finished actions in unfinished time. The example that we took was, if I talk about breakfast, then can I say, I haven't had breakfast now? Then breakfast gonna time එකක් so I haven't had breakfast කියලා මට කියන්න බෑ. අද. හැබැයි if I say I didn't have breakfast today, ඒක අවුලක් නැහැ. breakfast time
That's
period එක
finished.
ඉවර වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. So breakfast ගන්න time එක තමයි මෙන්න මේ කොළ පාට box එක මේ උඩ එකේ. එතකොට දැන් කතා කරද්දී finished time එක finished action එකක්. When saying I didn't have breakfast today using simple past, that is okay. But now දැන් කතා කරද්දී may breakfast ගන්න time එකක් නෙවෙයි. Therefore, talking about breakfast is not right. The other thing, ඊයේ customers ලා 6 දෙනෙක් ආවා කියලා කියද්දි. How do I say? Six customers came, or six customers visited yesterday. But අද ගැන කතා කරද්දී අද දැන් තවම දවස් ඉවර නැහැ. අද තව customers ලාට එන්න පුළුවන් shop එකට. හැබැයි මේ වෙලාවට නම් අයිස්ක්‍රීම් කන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. කොහොමද නෑ වෙවිස්සයි. කොහොමද? අපි ඒ කතා කරන වෙලාව වෙනකොටත් if it is possible for it to change, like if it is still relevant, then we can use present perfect. But if we are already close, then using present perfect is not right. I think අද දවස ඇතුලේ අද ඔය එක කරන්න බැරි නම් can we do that for something that happened a month ago? මාසෙකට කලින් වෙච්ච දෙයක් ගැන ඕක කියන්න දැන්. ඒතර අපිට සිංහලෙන් කියනකොට අපිට අරක දැනනවා තමයි. මේකේ සඳුදා කස්ටමර්ස්ලා 100ක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා කියලා. හැබැයි අපි එතන සිංහලෙන් අදහස් කරද්දී කස්ටමර්ස්ලා 100ක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා කියලා එතන අදහස් කරන්නේ present perfectly 100 customers have come කියලා කතාව නෙවෙයි. අපි සිංහලෙන් අදහස් කරන දේ තමයි මේ ප්‍රස්තාරේ පෙන්නුම් කරලා තියෙනවා සඳුදා කස්ටමර්ස්ලා 100ක් ආවා කියලා කියලා. නේද අපි එදිනෙදා කතා කරනකොට ස්පීකින් වලදී ඔහොම කියලා සංකීර්ණ දෙයක් හිතන්නේ නැහනේ. That's why when you get used to the translation method of having a sentence in Sinhala and thinking of that කරලා තියෙනවා. I can present perfect කියලා තේරුම් ගත්තොත් English වැරදියට කතා කරන්න සහ English වරදින්න එකයි. So don't do that. Focus on the use cases, focus on the usage, and then you will use the right tenses for the right ideas. Then how do you actually say it? ගිය මාසේ සඳුදා දවස්වලදී customers ලා 100ක් ආවා.
100 customers came on Monday.
On Mondays.
Last month.
Last month. So 100 customers came to this shop on Mondays last month. It's simple. Like make a speaking English, spoken English වලට class එකක් නේ. එතකොට නම් ඕක හරි. හැබැයි if you are in a business environment and if you want to just add useless words to increase the word count and make you look formal, you can still do that. But not using present perfect, but adding different expressions like openers. So this chart or this graph shows that 100 customers visited this shop last month. So add those things rather than just resorting to translating single ideas into English. So get a printout of these 3 slides and have it somewhere and get yourself familiar with the use cases of these tenses. So it's already 1 hour and 50 minutes. That means how much more time do we have? We have another 50 minutes, right? Yes. It is. That's because it is already there on the slides, and I will quickly give you an explanation of this chart. But first I need some water. Solver. Right. Thank you for giving me some time to drink water. So, tenses. How many tenses do we have to talk about present time? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just 2. Present tense කියලා එන නම තියෙන ඒවා 4ක් තියෙනවා තමයි, but we use only 2 of those to talk about the present. So we have simple present and present continuous to talk about the present. And the difference is when you use simple present, that doesn't always relate to the actual present, which is now. Simple present use කරද්දී ඒක අර මේ දැන් කියන idea එක නෙවෙයි තියෙන්නේ. Then what does it mean? It can be. Where do you use simple present, as you remember? Now, everything is on the slide, but I'm trying to jog your memory.
Didn't get it. Yes, can you?
Yeah. So, simple present and present continuous, present perfect continuous. එහෙම present කියලා කැලක් tense එකේ 9 තියෙනවා 4ක් තියෙනවානේ. But out of those 4, we use only 2 to talk about the actual present. Present කියන එක ගැන වර්තමාන ගැන කතා කරන්න අර tense 4න් දෙකක් use වෙන්නේ. And this simple present and present progressive, or you can say present continuous, those 2, out of those 2, only one relates to the present, which is now. මේ now කියන දැන් කියන වර්තමානට අදාළව කතා කරන්න තියෙන්නේ එකයි. එතකොට where do we use simple present? What are the use cases of that?
Yeah, when we are discussing about the general truths or habits, or daily routines,
Very good.
we can use simple present.
Yes. And the other one is states like the non-ing verbs. I like coffee. I understand Japanese. වගේ දේවල් කියද්දි they are also in the simple present. So the difference between present progressive and simple present is not actually bound to time. It just relates to a general present idea. And it can be true, but it doesn't have to be true at the moment of speaking. So example, cousin is a bus driver, so he drives buses, but that doesn't mean that he is driving a bus right now. That's a characteristic of cousin. Cousinගේ characteristic එකක් විතරයි එයා බස් drive කරනවා කියන්නේ. එයාගේ කොටසක් එයා ගැන කියද්දි එයාට අදාළ truth එකක්, එයාට අදාළ fact එකක්. But that doesn't mean he has to be doing that action at the moment of speaking. So simple present is not bound to time at the moment of speaking. කතා කරන වෙලාවේ time එකට simple present බැඳිලා නැහැ. But present progressive is. And on the other hand, when we use present progressive, we do not have to use a time expression with it. Time expression එකක් ඕන වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Present progressive වලටවත් simple present වලටවත් ideas ගැන කියනකොට. So we don't have to say I brush my teeth every day කියන එක every day කියන එක නොතිබ්බොත් I brush my teeth, then it is still relevant. It just says it's a fact. And there are people who don't brush teeth, right? So those cannibal people and people who do not have access to that, or who do not know that brushing is necessary. So there are people who don't brush. So we don't have to have a time expression. Time expression එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ simple present වලට. And it always makes sense. But other tenses, like the things that we use for past, they need a time expression in most cases. Time එකක් ඒවට ඕනි ගොඩක් time වලදී. The same thing applies to present progressive. Present progressive වලටත් එහෙමයි. Present progressive වලදී අපි now කියලා නොකියුවට, at the moment කියලා නොකියුවට, they have complete meaning. They are fully like they're 100% okay. Like there's no issue with them. But if you use like past continuous, I was talking to her. I was talking to her කියන එක context එකක් නැතුව, තව sentences නැතුව, time expression එකක් නැතුව complete idea එකක් නෙවෙයි. That means the listener will not get the full idea that you are trying to give. So these two tenses pan ඉවරයි. You need to let it charge. I will use the mouse for now. All right. So these two tenses, they do not need a time expression. ඒවට time expression එකක් ඕනේ නැහැ. Now කියන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. Every day කියන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't say. You can add when it is necessary. Like if there was a person who doesn't brush their teeth every day, but they wanted to emphasize that they do that only once every 3 days, then yeah. How would you say it? Cousin Datmadini දවස් 3කට සැරේ. I just want to see whether you can create that time expression, that frequency part. Cousin Datmadini දවස් 3කට සැරේ.
Cousin brush his teeth once in every 3 days.
Once every 3 days. So with every, we don't need a preposition. So cousin brushes his teeth once every 3 days. So yeah, there we need the time expression, but without that, if you wanted to say cousin datma dinna hai, you can simply say cousin doesn't brush his teeth. එතකොට මෙතෙන්දී ඔය දෙකේ තියෙන වාසිය නෙමෙයි වැදගත්කම තමයි තේරුම් ගන්න. Present continuous වත් simple present වත් time expression එකක් නැතුව use කළා කියලා කිසි issue එකක් නැහැ. Then for present time we have present progressive. ඒ කියන්නේ අර am is එක ing use කරපුවා. So that we can use to talk about actions or events or things happening at the moment of speaking. මේ කතා කරන වෙලාවේ සිද්ධ වෙන දේවල් කරන දේවල් ගැන කතා කරන්න. So how would we say අන්න dinner serve කරනවා. දැන් මේ වෙලාවේ අපිට ඇහෙනවා පිංගම් ග්ලාස් එක කරනවා. අර curry තියෙන dishes ටික ගෙනහිලා තියෙනවා මේස උඩින්. එතන අපි කියනවා අන්න dinner serve කරනවා. How would you say it?
dinner
The dinner is serving.
dinners are dinner are served.
Dinner is being
The
served.
dinner is serving.
Dinner is being served. When you say dinner is serving, dinner එක නේද වැඩේ කරන්නේ. දැන් dinner
yeah,
එකට
yeah,
වැඩ කරන එක dinner එක serve කරනවා. So dinner is being served. Thank you, Miss Ashi. Good answer. Then එතකොට අරක අපිට dinner is serving කියලා කියන්න නැතුව මෙහෙම කියන්න පුළුවන්. They are serving dinner කියලා කියන්න පුළුවන්. We can use active. It doesn't always have to be passive. I just wanted to check your passive understanding because active හැමදාම හැම ක්ලාස් එකකම ඔය කාලේ තමයි කරලා තියෙන නිසා ඒක ඔළුවේ තියෙනවනේ. passive නේ පැටලලා තියෙන දේ. So පැටල මාරින නිසා තමයි ගොඩක් ලාට අහන examples passive වලින් අහන්නේ. But active is perfectly fine. If you wanted to say අන්න මල්ලි දොර අරිනවා. මල්ලි දොර අරිනවා.
Brother is opening the door.
My brother is opening the door. Brother is opening the door. So they are just things happening at the moment and things that I can hear happening in my house. So this, we saw habitual actions. They are told in simple present. Habits is පුරුදු විදිහට කරන දේවල් අපි කියවා simple present වලින් කියන්නේ කියලා. But when it comes to temporary habits, what are temporary habits? Temporary habits කියන්නේ මොනවද? How do we compare habitual actions or habits with temporary habits? Think of an example like this. මම සාමාන්‍යයෙන් හැරෙන්නේ 7ට. How do you say it?
I usually wake up at 7.
I usually wake up at 7. You can add AM or in the morning, but no need. If you want, you can. I usually wake up at 7. හැබැයි දැන් මේ දවස්වල මට පොඩ්ඩක් වෙන දුර ඔෆිස් එකකට travel කරන්න වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ හින්දා මම නැගිටින්නේ 5ට. එතකොට is that a habitual thing or a temporary habit I have?
Temporary.
That's a
Temporary
temporary
habit.
habit.
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't say I wake up at 5 these days. Rather, how would you say it?
I am
This
waking
is
up.
I'm waking up.
I'm waking up at 7, no, not 7, 5 these days because I have to travel farther. So, හැමදාම කරන පුරුද්දක් ඉදිරිය කරන දේ that you say that in simple present. And when it is a habit that you have only for a short period of time, which is temporary, then you would use present continuous. So, I'm waking up at 5 these days because I have to travel farther. Hey, farther again?
Mean dura.
Yes. And then you have also heard of a word called further. Further the farther, the මොකක්ද ඒකේ වෙනස?
Further mean තව දුරට. Farther mean dura.
Yes. So that is a confusing area for many students I have seen. And Mr. Sanjay, you have got it right. So that is great. So further, that is for concepts, work, and thoughts which are not like real, not physical. But if you are talking about physical distance can dura ගැන මොනවා හරි ගමනක දුර වෙන්න පුළුවන්, තැන් දෙකක දුර වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Then it is not further, you use farther there because the spelling is F-A-R-T-H-E-R. The other one is F-U-R-T-H-E-R. So that further, that's for imaginary things that you like think, concepts, work, progress. But if it is physical distance between two objects or people, then that becomes farther. So when I say මට ගොඩක් දුරට travel කරන්න තියෙනවා සාමාන්‍යයෙන් travel කරනවට වඩා දුර travel කරන්න තියෙනවා I say farther because of that reason. So when you say මම මේ දවස්වල తాවකාලිකව මේ ටිකේ පහට හැරෙනවා then you would use present perfect. I am waking up at 5 because I have to travel farther than the other days. So present tense is fun. හැබැයි tenses වලින් නෙමෙයි. In addition to these, next week, I don't think next week, because now with the time that we have, we won't be able to complete this. Therefore, not next week, but no, let's see. May විතරක් නෙමෙයි present tense කියන්නේ. Present ගැන කතා කරන්න තියෙන විදිය. What are some other ways? Can't you use can to talk about things in the present? Can use කරන්න බෑද? වර්තමානට අදාළ දේවල් ගැන කියන්නේ. When you say, I can do that for you, it's not present really, but it does have a present idea which also relates to a future time. So they are not actually considered in tenses. That's why you didn't come across them in school. But that also has a present idea about a present ability. You can have different ways to say this, but it is also referring to the present. So it's not just simple present and present progressive that we use to talk about things that are relevant to the present. We can talk about present abilities and present obligations. So when you say, I can do that for you, that's the meaning. So that is also in the present, right? Present obligation, what is that? You talk about obligation using should. Should use කරලා මේක.
I should do this.
I should do this. මම මේක කරන්න ඕනේ. Is that in the future or past? It's
Right.
relevant to the present, but the actual action may happen in the future. ඒක relevancy එක තියෙන්නේ දැනට. ඇත්තට මේක කරන්න අනාගත වෙන්න පුළුවන්, but still relevant to the present time. So in addition to simple present and present progressive, we can use models to talk about things that are relevant to present too, but haven't included them here because this is mainly about the tenses that we have learned so far. All right. So when we cover all of that, we can add a few notes here and there if you forget. Otherwise, you can keep that in your head. Present time is easy. Then we go to this past time. Now, here when I say the present tense, that includes all those four tenses that you learned. Simple present, present progressive, present perfect, and present perfect progressive. Let's look at that. So even though present perfect has the word present in it, it refers to past time. So where do we use present perfect? For these four. What's the state up to now? Now here when we looked at states, we looked at examples like love, like, understand, smell, taste, delicious. So here, when you want to say man you don't have to go here because why? It's a steady verb. You don't use ing there. So how would you say it? I have loved you for 6 years. You don't have to say, I have been loving you for 6 years. No, it's a steady verb. So you can simply say, I have loved you for 6 years. That doesn't mean that I have stopped. But when you say, I loved you for 6 years, that can, like that may or may not mean that you have stopped loving. So there's a subtle difference there when it comes to tenses, but yeah. When you talk about a state in the past, we can use simple past. It means I loved you for 6 years. But when you specifically use present perfect to talk about that, I have loved you for 6 years, that doesn't mean that it has ended. It implies that it can continue further. Correct? There it's not farther, it's further. Why? කාලේ තවදුරටත් යනවා කියලා කියන්නේ. දුරක් යනවා නෙමෙයි. Physical distance එකක් නෙමෙයි. Therefore it is further. We use farther when it is about physical distance. So that's just a side. So that's the first use case that we can observe while relating that to what we have learned so far. Then what is indefinite past actions or events? Again, do you remember talking about experiences? Okay, experiences ගැන කතා කරන්න present perfect use කරන විදිහ කතා කළා මතකද? So when you say මම dragon fruit කාලා තියෙනවා, how do you say it? මම dragon fruit කාලා
I
තියෙනවා.
have eaten.
I have eaten dragon fruit. Thank you, Ms. Ajanta. Now the question goes to you again, since
Yes.
no particular reason. So I'm asking this. මම පළවෙනි වතාවට dragon fruit කෑවේ කොයි කාලෙද? අවුරුද්දක්? දාන්න. මම පළවෙනි වතාවට dragon fruit කෑවේ මෙන්න මේ අවුරුද්දේදී කියලා කියනවා. අපි කියමුකෝ 2006 කියලා. Then how do you say it?
I ate food
For the first time
for the first time.
in
Last
in
last
2006.
in 2006. So I've ate dragon fruit for the first time last week. Last week වගේ කියනකොට in දාන්න ඕනේ. We can simply say last week. But if you mention a year, then we have to use the appropriate preposition. So years, it is in. So I ate dragon fruit for the last time, not for the last time, for the first time in 2006. So there we mention the time. Time එක හරියටම කියනවා මෙදා කියලා. But here, when dragon fruit කාලා තියෙනවා, it's not specific, not definite. That's why we use present perfect. So I have eaten dragon fruit. When dragon fruit කාලා තියෙනවා කියන්නේ time එකක් mention කරන්නේ නැහැ. But when you say I ate dragon fruit for the first time in 2006, there we mention the time. It doesn't have to be way back in the past. You can simply say something like I saw you yesterday. ඒකේ time එකක් තියෙනවා. I saw you yesterday. Time එකක් කියලා තියෙනවා.
No.
No? Yesterday can
Yesterday.
That's a definite past action. Past action in definite past time. Past action එකක් saw you නේ. ඉවරයි තමයි. හැබැයි අපි time එකක් mention කරනවා හරියටම කවද්ද? ඊයේ කියලා. But when I say I have seen you, can we say yesterday? I have seen you yesterday. කියලා කියන්න පුළුවන්.
Can't.
We can't. So that
Maybe
is the
yesterday
difference.
or before yesterday.
Yeah, it can be in the past, but we don't specify the time. I have seen you. මම දැකලා තියෙනවා. කවද්ද කියලා හැමකුත් mention කරන්නේ නැහැ. Now we go back to that same chart. අර chart එකේ ප්‍රශ්නේ translate කරලා දෙන ප්‍රශ්නෙට අපි ආයෙ යනවා. Now අපිට අර වගේ chart එකක් දීලා තියෙද්දි ඒක specifically කියලා තියෙනවානේ මේ ගිය මාසේ මෙන්න මේගොල්ලෝ ආවේ එක කියලා. ඒතර සිංහලෙන් අපිට ඒක අවුලක් නෑ තමයි. ගිය මාසේ සඳු දවස්වලදී මිනිස්සු 100 දෙනෙක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. So 100 people came to this shop on Mondays last month. ඒක මෙහෙම කිව්වොත් හරියද? 100 people have come to this shop on Mondays last month කියලා. වැරදි කියලා දන්නවනේ. ඇයි වැරදි කියලා මම අහන්නේ.
No, the last month we state that definite time frame. No,
Yes.
last month, so we cannot put that.
Excellent. That is the reason why translation fails. Translation කරන්න ගියාම වරදින හේතුව ඒක තමයි. So in English it is a rule that we do not use present perfect with definite past times like that. Definite past tense. දැන් අපි ඔක හැතරම කියලා තියෙනවානේ හරියට මෙන්න මේ දවස්වල මේ මාසේ එහෙම කියලා. So in English we don't do that with present perfect. That's why it is wrong. So do not translate from Sinhala to English like that. Karnada?
No.
Very good. Like these are the things that I miss. Like those days when I used to teach inside the physical classroom එක ඇතුලේ උගන්වන්නේ ළමයිගේ මියුට් කිරිල්ලකන් මියුට් කිරිල්ලක් නෑනේ ළමයි කෑ ගහනවනේ කොහොමද ක්ලාස් එක ඇතුලේ. ඒතර ඒගොල්ලන්ට කතා කරද්දී ලයිව් ඒ දේවල් කියද්දී හරි ෆන්. but මෙතෙන්දී ඔයාලා no කියන එකට no කිව්වොත් ගොඩක් දෙනා මියුට් කරන්න ඉන්නේ. ඒතර ඇහෙන්නේ නෑ හරියට නිකන් screen එකට ගන්නවා වගේ. I miss those days but I can't go back so yeah. කොහොමද ඔන්න පේන්නෙත් නෑනේ. අකුරු ටිකක් විතරයි පේන්නේ. So I really want to go back to that past but can't. All right. So present perfect. So indefinite past actions and habit continued up to now. Simple. මං ස්මෝක් කරනවා. I smoke. අදවරු දෙකක් තිස්සේ ස්මෝක් කරනවා. හැබැයි I have been smoking කියලා කියන්න ඕනේ නෑ. මොකද හැම දිගටම පත්තු කරන් ඉන්නවා කියලා අදහස නෙමෙයි කියන්න ඕනේ. අවශ්‍ය වෙලාවට ස්මෝක් කරනවා කියන්නේ. Then is it I smoked for 2 years or I have smoked for 2 years?
I have smoked.
I have smoked for 2 years. එතන එතනින් අදහස් කරන්නේ අර දිගට මේ දේ කරනවා කියන දේ නෙමෙයි. Occasionally from time to time මෙන්න මේ දේවල් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒක habit එකක් විදියට. හැබැයි ඒ habit එක නැවතුණා කියලා එකක් කියවෙන්නේ නැහැ. But if you say that using simple past, I smoked for 2 years, then it is not complete. The sentence is not complete. The reason is it doesn't provide any context, and without a time expression, it can have an ambiguous meaning. Simple past use කරනකොට මම අර කලින් කිව්ව දේ මොකක්ද? With simple present and present progressive, you do not have to mention a time expression because it is a given. Like when you use simple present, just states it shows that it's a fact. And when you use present progressive, it defaults to now. ඒකේ time expression එක කමතෙන් කියලා නැත්නම් ඒක දැන් කියලා තේරුම් ගන්න. So in present perfect, you don't mention a time expression anyway because you just talk about something that is relevant now but happened in the past. So when you use simple past, I smoked for 2 years. ඒ time එක කියලා නෑනේ. Therefore, it seems incomplete. In such cases, you are advised to use the time expression like I smoked for 2 years when I was at university. My university in the then it shows that it finished. What are some other ways to say that? Then we can use habits. Present perfect to talk about habits continued up to now. Past time. You can use simple past to talk about past habits that finished. And how do you say, or how do you do the same thing using a different expression? We talked about this when we talked about simple past. Used to.
I used to smoke when I was university.
I used to smoke when I was at university. Then what does that indicate? It continued in the past from a particular time to another particular time, and it is not continuing anymore. That has finished. That is not true anymore. I used to smoke. I used to think that Sri Lanka was a beautiful, precious, wonderful country. I used to think. It has like the action. It's over. So, I used to like you. I used to like you as a friend. Then what does that mean? Then කැමතිද?
No.
No. So that's something to remember. You can use used to talk about past habits that are not true anymore. How do you say මම ඒ කාලේ history වලට එන අකමැති? දැන් කැමති නම් I used to like නේ අකමැති.
Dislike. So, dislike.
Pretty. Oh, dislike. You can use dislike. I used to dislike history. Okay. Then ඒක කපටි වැඩන්නේ like වලට opposite එකක් තියෙනවානේ dislike.
I used to hate.
I used to.
I didn't used to.
No. I didn't used to. I didn't used to නෙමෙයි. Do you remember the verb combination rule?
I didn't used to.
I didn't
Yes,
used to.
that's-
Used
yeah.
මේ අපි use කරන්න past habit එකට. So when you want to make it a negative thing, මම ඉස්සර මම එහෙම කවදාවත් smoke කරන්න පුරුදු වෙලා හිටියේ නැහැ. I didn't used to smoke. Right. Then these are done. This. අපි අර මගේ යාළුවෙක් අත කඩාගත්ත ගැන කතා කළා නේද? මතකද ඒක? මෙන්න මේක මට ඔයාලා explain කරන්න බලන්න. Past action or event with present results. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? ඒ අත කඩාගත්ත example එක වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. You can give me an example for that and try to explain the concept. It can be either in English or Sinhala. You can use either of those languages. Just explain the example or the concept to me. And if you want, you can draw comparisons from simple past. So on a simple past, වලින් ඔක කිව්වොත් මොකක්ද ඒකේ meaning එක? මොකක්ද එතන තියෙන ambiguity එක? ඒ කියන්නේ ambiguity කියලා කියන්නේ පැටලි සහගතකම මොකක්ද එතන කියලා ඔයාලට කියන්න පුළුවන්. Try.
My son met with an accident last week, and his leg has fractured.
His leg has fractured, all right. Now, what is the result? Why does that matter?
Now he is being hospitalized.
He has been hospitalized and therefore he can't come to work. All right. Then if it was something like this, if we say the same thing, so cousin met with an accident and his leg fractured and he was hospitalized, does that imply anything related to his present condition? No. එතකොට ඒක අපි පරණ සිද්ධියක් විස්තර කරන්නේ. cousin accident වුණා, cousin ගේ කකුල ගැටුණා, cousin hospital ගෙනිච්චා කියලා කියන්නේ. Hey, hospital ගෙනිච්ච හැටි අර do you remember Harry Potter, the second movie? We have Gilderoy Lockhart අර හෙන පණ්ඩිත professor teacher. එයා ඇවිල්ලා මන්ත්‍රයක් කරලා හැරිගේ අතට මතුරන්නේ අත ඊට පස්සේ රබර් එකක් වගේ වැටෙන්නේ. මතකද නැත්? දැන් ලොකු අයනේ Harry Potter films බලලා නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. කොහරි අපි හිතුව magic එකක් තිබිලා එකෙන් අස්තිය හොද කරන්න පුළුවන් වුණා කියලා. එහෙනම් cousin දාද වැඩට එන්න පුළුවන්. So that implication is there when you say everything in simple past, because that doesn't show that the past action or past result or past event is still relevant. අපි simple past thing වල සේරම කතාවට කිව්වම ඒක දැනුත් එහෙමයි කියන අදහසක් කියවෙන්නේ නැහැ. So when you say cousin's leg has fractured, cousin ගේ කකුල කැඩිලා. ඒ නිසා ඒ කැඩිච්ච එක තමයි valid. තාම හොඳ වෙලා නැහැ කියන අදහස තියෙනවා. But when you say cousin's leg fractured, cousin ගේ කකුල කැඩුණා කියලා විතරයි කියන්නේ. එතනින් එහාට ඒක දැනට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා දෙයක් කියවෙන්නේ නැහැ. Get that?
Yeah.
මොකක් හරි දෙකක හොඳ වෙලා ඉන්න පුළුවන්. කියන්නේ දැන් ඒක okay වෙන්න පුළුවන්, but we don't say anything like that. So that is the difference between simple past and present perfect. When you use present perfect, it implies that what happened in the past is still relevant. But when you use simple present perfect, shows that it is still relevant, and when you use just simple past, එහෙම මොකුත් now එක relationship එකක් නැහැ. It's just a complete past event. So that difference is fun. මෙන්න මේ example එක. යාළුවෙක්ගේ ගෙදර යනවා ඔයා. ඒ යනකොට යාළුවා අහනවා කමුද කියලා. එතකොට ඔයාට කන්න බැහැ නම් ඔයා කන්න කොහොමද කියන්නේ? එක විදියක්. අනික් එක කාලා ආවේ කෑවා. හැබැයි තාම කන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට ඔයා උත්තරේ දෙන විදිය තව විදියක්. ඔයාට යාළුවට කියන්නත් ඕනේ කෑවා කියලා. එතකොට කියන විදිහ එකක්. විදි දෙක ගැන හිතන්න බලන්න. කන්න ඕනි කොට උත්තරේ දෙන විදියයි දැන් කන්න බෑ බඩ පිරලා කියන අදහස යාළුවට දාන්න ඕනි කොට උත්තරේ දෙන විදියයි දෙක. කොහොමද කියන්නේ? Oh, I'm waiting for an answer. Anyone can try.
First, I can first that we can say I just ate.
Hmm.
So I ate. Second, I can.
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm listening. I just wanted to move that participants window to the left.
I'm
I'm eat can be. I am
I
can
eat.
be. I ate.
I ate.
I ate.
Hmm.
I'm doing it. I'm eating.
I'm eating කියොත් මම දැන් කකා එනවා මේ වෙලාවේ කනවා කියලා idea ගන්න කියවෙන්නේ. So the two tenses that you need are either simple past or present perfect. Simple past looks like the subject and then you have the V2 form, the past tense form.
I have eaten.
I have eaten. So where do you use I have eaten and where do you use I ate?
I ate means I ate means that I want to have it now.
Mhm.
I have eaten means that
බඩ පිරිලා කොට කියන්නේ I ate කියලාද? I have eaten කියලා. කන්න බෑ. කන්න වමනාවක් නැතිකොට කියන්නේ
I have it.
I have eaten.
I have eaten.
එතකොට දැන් කෑව හැබැයි තාම බඩේ ඉඩ තියෙනවා.
Yes.
Then you say I ate.
I ate.
Did you get that? So when you say I have eaten කියන එකේ result එක බඩ පිරෙනවා බඩ ඉගෙන නැහැ කියන දේනේ. So when you use present perfect, that means the result is still valid. So
Yeah.
past action is eating. Eating කියන එකේ result එක බඩ පිරුණා කියන දේ තාමත් valid නිසා you use present perfect. So I have eaten.
Yeah.
But when you say I ate, it doesn't imply anything like that. It just means that the action finished, action completed. කෑවා කියන idea එක විතරයි. So I ate, but I can still eat something like there's enough room. So using simple past and present perfect can be useful in such instances. It doesn't only limit to hunger, but many other things too. Like it
I
can
means that I ate කිව්වොත් මම දැන් පැය දෙකකට කලින් කෑවා කියලා කියන්නත් පුළුවන් නේ පැය 10ට කෑවා.
Hmm.
දැන් කතා කරන්නේ 12ට කන්න. මට දැන් කියන්න පුළුවන් ඒත් මට කන්න පුළුවන් හින්දා I ate කියන්න පුළුවන්.
Yes, exactly. So it is still eating time, like second breakfast or second something like brunch.
I have eaten කියන්නේ කතා කරන්න විනාඩි 5කට කලින් කෑවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
එහෙම වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැත්නම් උදේ කාපු එක තාම ටෝස්ට් වගේ දෙයක් කාලා වතුර බීපුවම ආයි කන්න බෑනේ. ඒ වගේ දෙයක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. It
දැන්
doesn't have
කන්න
to
බැරි
be-
දෙයක් ගැන කියන්නේ. දැන් කන්න
Yes.
බෑ කියන්නේ.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a very short time in the past. ඒ කියන්නේ අර මට
Yeah.
emphasize කරන්න ඕනේ අර විනාඩි 5ක් 10ක් කියන අදහස් නෙමෙයි එතෙන්දි තියෙන්නේ. result එක කියන දේ.
It means that meal has to digest, no?
Yes, exactly that regarding meals. So that's the main use case or the main difference between simple past and present perfect. So you have two examples, remember it. කකුල කඩාගත්තු case එක තියෙනවා. කකුල කඩාගත්තු case එකේදී if you use cousin's leg fractured, කැඩුනා කියලා ඉතරයි කියන්නේ. දැන් මේ වෙනකොට තාම හොඳ වෙලා නැහැ කියලා අදහසක් නැහැ when you use simple past. But when you say cousin's leg has fractured, then that means අර කකුල කැඩුනා කියන දේ තාමත් අදාළයි, තාම valid කියන දේ. කෑවා example එකේදී I ate කියද්දී කෑවා හැබැයි දැන් බඩ පිරලා තාම බඩ පිරලා හැමකුත් අදහසක් ඒක නැහැ. හැබැයි when you say I have eaten එතකොට කාලා ඉන්නේ වගේ අදහසක් තමයි කියන්නේ. දැන් clear නේද?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So can't be used past participle instead of past tense. Past participle can't be used instead of past tense.
We are actually using the past participle there. Well, past participle is not a tense, it is a verb form. That's what we call as V3. So when we say past participle, that means the V3 form that we use with have or has. So have, has, and then the past participle. So when we say I have eaten,
Yes, for me, past perfect tense. I want
past perfect. That's a
past
very good
perfect.
question.
Yes.
So that we discussed that day, we use past perfect when there is another past time or a past event. To remember that. That means මම කසුන් මෙහෙම කියනවනම් මම කසුන්ලා දිහා ගියා. එවෙලේ යාමර කන්න කතා කළා. හැබැයි ඒ වෙලෙදි මං කාලා හිටියේ. එතකොට අදහස මම කසුන්ලා දිහා ගියේ past time එකනේ පහුගිය වෙලාවකනේ. ඒ වෙලාවට කලින් කනවා කියන එක කළේ. So we have two past events. කාපු වෙලාව තියෙනවා කසුන්ලා දිහා ගියපු වෙලාව තියෙනවා. ඒතකොට කසුන්ලා දිහා ගියපු වෙලාවට කලින් තමයි කැවේ. And then we need past perfect. එතකොට past perfect ඕනෙමයි. හැබැයි මෙතෙන්දී අපි එහෙම එක නෙවෙයි කියන්නේ. මෙතෙන්දී අපි කියන්නේ මේ දැන් ඉඳන් බලද්දි එහෙනම් past perfect use කරන්න බෑ. We use past perfect only where the
කකුල කැඩිච්ච එක ගැන කියනකොට වැරදි
ඒකද?
යූස් කරන්නේ.
එහෙමයි. ඒකෙදිත් අපි කියන්නේ cousin met with an accident, his leg fractured, therefore he can't come to work today. එහෙම නැත්නම් cousin met with an accident, his leg has fractured, therefore he can't come to work today. හැබැයි අපිට මෙහෙම නම් කියන්නේ cousinට ඊයේ වැඩට එන්න බැරි වුණේ ඇයි කියලා කවුරුහරි අහද්දී cousin met with an accident the day before yesterday or last week, so his leg fractured and it had not healed, therefore he couldn't come to work yesterday. අපිට past perfect වමනා වෙන්නේ past time එකකට කලින් ඉවර කරපු දෙයක් ගැන කියන්නේ. දැන් මෙතනදී අපි දැන් ඉඳන් කතා කරනකොට අදට කලින් දෙයක් ගැන කතා කරන්න විතරනේ වනේ. එතකොට cousin's leg has fractured, so he can't come. මෙහෙම නම් කියන්න ඕනේ. cousinගේ කකුල කැඩුනේ මෙහෙම. cousinගේ මේ පහුගිය accident එකේදී කකුල කැඩුනේ බයික් එකේ ගිහලා. හැබැයි බයික් එකේ ගිහලා පෙරලලා කකුල කැඩෙන්න තියෙන chance එක අඩුයිනේ. හැබැයි ඊට කලිනුත් කකුල cousinගේ කැඩලා තිබුණා වෙන ලොකු accident එකකින්. එතනින්ම තමයි කැඩලා තියෙන්නේ. දැන් අපි මේ කොතෙන්ද යන්නේ? දැන් අපි යන්නේ අර එක past event එකකටත් කලින් දෙයක් ගැන කතා කරා. එතකොටයි past perfect on වෙන්නේ. එතකොට අපි ඒක කියවනම් කියන්නේ cousin met with an accident yesterday and his leg fractured. This happened because he had another accident 2 years ago and then his leg had already fractured at that time and it got healed, and then yesterday during this second accident his leg fractured again.
Okay sir.
ගන්නවනේ දේ මොකද්ද? past perfect use කරන්නේ තව past event එකකට කලින් past දෙයක් ගැන කතා කරනකොට විතරයි. ඒක දැනට කලින් කියලා කියනකොට we use either simple past or present perfect. සිද්ධි දෙකක් තියෙනවා නම් හෝ අපි ඒ කියන කතාවේදී අපි කියන දෙයටත් කලින් දෙයක් ගැන නම් කතා කරන්නේ we need past perfect. Another example would be මම ඊයේ ගෙදර යනකොට 4ට විතර ඒ වෙද්දි මගේ නංගි ඇවිල්ලා හිටියා. එතෙන්දී ඕනේද past perfect?
No sir.
ඈ එතෙන්දී ඕනේ නේ. ඇයි?
When I went go there, my nange I will hit here had come.
මං ඊයේ ගෙදර යනකොට 4යි කියන්නේ past event එකක්. මං ඊයේ ගෙදර යනවා ඒකත් ඉවර වෙච්ච දෙයක්. ඊට කලින් නම් ගියානේ.
Yes.
එතකොට ඊයේ ගෙදර යන වෙලාවට කලින් දෙයක් ගැනයි මේ කතා කරන්නේ. Then we need past perfect. හැබැයි මම මෙහෙම කියනකොට මං දැන් මේ ගෙදර යන ගමන් කාට හරි කෝල් එකක් කරගෙන යාළුවත් එක්ක කෝල් එකේ ඉඳන් තමයි ගෙදරට පයින් ඇවිදලා යන්නේ. එතකොට පේනවා නංගිගේ කායක තියෙනවා. එතකොට නංගි ඇවිල්ලා. දැන් past perfect වනද?
No, present perfect.
Then we use present perfect. And how do you say it?
Perfect only. Yeah.
Then how do you say it to your friend?
When I was going there sir.
No. දැන් මම මේ යාළුවත් එක්ක ෆෝන් එකේ මම යාළුවට කෝල් එකක් කරා යන ගමන් එන්නේ. යන ගමන් මම දැන් ගේ ගාවට ගොඩ වෙද්දි දකින්න නංගිගේ කාර් එක. එතකොට මම නංගි ඇවිල්ලා කියලා කියන්නේ.
When I am going there, my nanny
Nangi
has
has
come.
come.
නංගි has come කියලා යාළුවට කියන්නේ නේද? එච්චරයි. ඕක පහුගිය දවසක ඊයේ සිද්ධිය විදිහට කියන්නේ මං ඊයේ ගෙදර යනකොට නංගි ඇවිල්ලා හිටියා. ඒතර ගෙදර යනකොට කියන්නේ past time එකක්. එහෙනම් ඊට කලින් වෙච්ච දේ නංගි ආව කියන දේ එතෙන්දී past perfect ඕනේ. හරි. හැබැයි දැන් මේ කතා කරන වෙලාවෙදි දැනට කලින් සිද්ධ වෙච්ච දෙයක් ගැන කියන්නේ එහෙම ඕනේ නැහැ.
It means that now, sir, that
එතකොට සරියන්නේ when I was going there my nang had come, no sir?
No, 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 no. You don't have to
When
say when
I
I was going
did it.
because now, right now, you are on that call. මේ call එකේ ඉන්න ගමන් යාළුවට කියන්න. එතන time එකක් අමුතුවෙන් කියන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. නංගි ඇවිල්ලා. නංගි has come. Results දාලා. Results have arrived.
No,
ඒ
sir.
වගේ.
She asked
No,
about the
sir.
past
I am going,
past thing.
The past thing. Yes. So
that
when I went
yes,
home,
yesterday.
my Nangi had arrived. Or my sister had arrived.
Right.
Or you can say, my sister had arrived before I went home. මගේ දරයන් කලින් නංගි ඇවිල්ලා තිබ්බේ. එහෙමත් නැත්නම් by the time I went home, my sister had arrived. Now, මම මේ slides ටික දැම්මහම ඔයාලට අපි complete කරන්න බැරි වෙච්ච ඒවාත් එක්කම slides ටික තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට ඔයාලට ඒ ටික බලලා ලබන සතියේ ඒ ටික discuss කරද්දී හොඳයි. මම මේකේ හැම එකටම දාලා තියෙනවා. එක එක tense එකත් එක්ක පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් time expressions මොනවාද කියන දේ. So future, there's the past tense. Simple past, simple future, present progressive, future progressive, present perfect. Yeah. Past perfect එක නෑ නේද මේ? ඒක future progressive. ටික discuss කරේ නැති නිසා ඒකට slides ටික add කළාම හරි. දැනට ඔයාලා discuss කරලා තියෙන slides ටිකේ එන්න පුළුවන් time expressions ටික මේ slides ටිකේ තියෙනවා. ඒ ටිකත් බලන්න next week අපි discuss කරන්න යන කලින්. So next week we will discuss this and we will dive more deep into what we are doing right now. So what we were able to finish was only tenses related to the present tense, and this question that we are addressing, past perfect and present perfect, that will definitely come again next week too. So we will talk about that too. But for now, තේරුණාද කියලා බලන්න අහන questions එක. නංගි පැත්තකින් තියලා මෙහෙම අහපන්. අන්න දැන් මම exam එකකට යනවා. exam hall එකට යනකොට. මේක mixed tenses. එතකොට present perfect past perfect විතරක් නෙමෙයි වෙන වෙනම තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. Now anyone can try, anyone can shout out the answers for these translations or these sentences. This is like a mixture of what? Tenses, sentences, ideas, time experiences, and everything, including voice. On them, exam hall එකට යන ගමන් ඒ යන ගමන් මම යාළුවාට call කරනවා. ඒ යාළුවාට call කරන ගමන් කියනවා මම දැන් exam hall එකට යන ගමන් ඉන්නේ කියලා. How do I say it?
I'm going to eat from.
I am on my way.
I'm on my way.
I am on my way.
I'm going to the exam hall now. Okay. Easy. Then යාළුවා දැන් exam hall එකේ ඉන්නේ. Right? එතකොට මම දැන් exam hall එකට ඇවිල්ලා දින්නේ. ඒක තමයි මේ යාළුවගෙන් අහන්නේ.
Have you come to the exam hall?
Have you come to the exam hall or have you arrived at the exam hall? Both are fine. Any other ways to say it? That's fine.
Are you there?
Are you there? Yeah, that is another way to say it. Or ඇවිල්ලා දින්නේ. Have you arrived at the exam hall? Have you come to the exam hall? Are you there? Then another one. Papers බෙදනවද? මේ කතා කරලා papers බෙදනවද?
Are papers being distributed?
Are the papers being distributed? මේ examiners ඇවිල්ලාද?
Has the examiners come?
Have the examiners come? Have the examiners arrived? මේ ඔය පාඩම් කළාද?
Did you study?
Did you study?
ඔය පාඩම් කරලාද ඉන්නේ කියලා අහනවනේ.
Have you studied?
Have you
Have you
studied?
studied? Have you studied? මේ ඔයා තුන්වෙනි පාඩම බලාගත්තද?
Did you study the
Did
third
you
lesson?
study third lesson?
Did you study the third lesson? මේ හයවෙනි පාඩම ඉගෙනුවාද?
Sixth lesson had been taught.
හයවෙනි පාඩම ඉගෙනුවාද?
Yes. Had sixth lesson been taught?
ඇයි ඒක past perfect වලින් කියන්නේ?
Did the say sixth
Did
lesson?
the sixth lesson taught? No. Yes, I think it's passive voice. PV.
Was the sex
passive, but
was the sex
Was the
sixth
sixth lesson taught?
yes, was the sixth lesson taught. Then next one. එයාලා හයවෙනි පාඩමෙන් ප්‍රශ්න අහයිද? අහයිද?
Will they ask question from the sixth lesson?
Will they ask questions from the sixth lesson?
Sixth lesson, yeah.
මට මම හයවෙනි පාඩම පාඩම් කළේ නැහැ.
I didn't study
I didn't study the sixth lesson.
මම fail වෙයිද?
Will I be
Will
failed?
I be?
Will I fail? හැබැයි will I ද ගැලපෙන්නේ වෙන එකක්ද? Will I අවුලක් නැහැ. But when you talk about future actions based on current evidence or current
Am I?
Am I මොකක්ද?
Fail.
Am I failed?
නෑ තමයි ලිවෙත් නෑ.
Am I failed?
No, no, no. There's
No.
another method to talk about future. Future දේවල් ගැන කියන්නේ තව විදිහක් තියෙනවා. And we specifically focused on that with this use case. Future actions or events based on current evidence or current situations. Am I?
Am I going to
Am I going to fail?
fail?
If it is based on current evidence, the evidence is that I didn't study the sixth lesson, so I'm going to fail now, fail either because I didn't study. Then, yeah, this is something like a thought experiment. Like you can just think of ideas, think of a situation, and see whether you can express those ideas that come to your head using the appropriate tense. And what do you need to pay most attention to? Do not translate the singular sentence into English as it is. Think of the use case, think of what kind of idea that is. So නේද මම fail වෙයිද කියලා කියද්දී will I fail කියලා හිතනවා but එහෙම නෙවෙයිනේ. මම fail වෙයිද කියලා මම මෙතනදී හිතන්නේ කොහොම අදහසක්ද? මම අර පාඩම් කළේ නැති නිසා ඒකෙන් fail වෙයිද කියලා. එහෙනම් will I කියන එක නෙමෙයි ගැලපෙන්නේ. Am I going to fail? හැබැයි ඒක ඔයාලගේ ඔළුවට එන්නේ නැහැ නේද? Going to කියලා කියන්නේ මම දැන් කරන්නයි යන්නේ කියලා මතක තියාගෙන හිටියද? එහෙනම් එහෙම කරන්න එපා කියලා කියන්නේ. ඒතර ඔයාලට මිස් වෙන දේවල් ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. So yeah, give it some thought and practice some and try some examples, try some sentences, ideas with your teachers and let me know. And we still could
Excuse me, PV. That examiners la ඇවිල්ලාද කියලා හද්දී we have to use that present perfect, no?
Yes.
Yes.
ඇවිල්ලා ගියා වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. එහෙම වුණා නම් එතකොට මෙහෙම හෙවොත් did the examiners come? ඕක මෙහෙම සිද්ධියක්. ඔන්න ඔයාලා එක්සෑම් එකට ගියා. එක්සෑම් එකට ගියාම තඩි කුණාටුවක් ආවා. ඒ කුණාටුවට වහල ටික ගඩන් ගන්න එක්සෑම් වල එක කුඩු. දැන් ඔයා යාළුවට කෝල් කරද්දී යාළුවා මෙහෙම එකක් කියනවා. එතකොට යා එක්සැමිනර්ස්ලා ඒ වෙලාවේ ඇවිල්ලා දීදී එහෙම නැත්නම් එක්සැමිනර්ස්ලා ආවා. හැබැයි ඒගොල්ලෝ දැනුත් ඉන්නවා කියන එක අදාළ නෑනේ. එහෙනම් අපිට අහන්න පුළුවන් එක්සැමිනර්ස්ලා ආවද කියලා නේද එතෙන්දී අහන්නේ. එහෙනම් did the examiners come? දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ එතන ඉන්න ඕනේ නෑ. දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ ගිහිල්ලා. හැබැයි have the examiners come කියලා ඇහුවාම එතකොට යාළුවට දෙන්න පුළුවන් උත්තරේ එක version එකක් තමයි yes they came but they left.
They left, yeah.
Depending on which tense you use, the idea, the context, it can be different.
Yeah.
So do not translate singular sentences into English because that is going to like make you lose a lot of other things. Sinhala sentence එක පැත්තෙන් tenses ඉගෙන ගන්න ගත්තොත් ඔයාලට නැති වෙන જાති ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. So give it some effort and try to remember the use cases and try some examples, alright? And if you have any questions, yeah, let me say
so examiners ලා ඇවිල්ලාද ඉන්නේ කියලා කොහොමද ඇහුවේ?
ඇවිල්ලාද ඉන්නේ කියන්නේ have they come? Have they come? Use
present perfect නේ we are
yes. So if I ask did the examiners come? The friend can say yes, but then that information can be irrelevant now. දැන් මේ වෙනකොට ඒක වැඩක් නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Examiners ආවද කියලා හරි ඒගොල්ලෝ ආවා හරි. හැබැයි දැන් එතන ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නව නැහැ. Did they ආවම ඒගොල්ලෝ ආවා. හැබැයි දැන් ගිහිල්ලා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Got it? But have they කියලා අහපුවාම ආවා. හැබැයි ඒගොල්ලෝ එතන ඉන්නව. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So
the result has to occurs, no?
the result has to be valid even at the moment of speaking when you use present perfect. With simple past, it doesn't have to be like that. It just happened. That's it. Not relevant now.
Thank you.
Okay. So
Were there examiners? Were there examiners?
were there examiners is also in the simple past using the be verb.
Hmm.
Examiners la hitiyada. දැන්
Examiners
ඉන්නෝනේ නැහැ.
training. It yes.
They are come or sorry.
I couldn't hear you, Harshita.
අපි examiner ආවද
ආවද කියලා හද්දී අපිට අහන්න ඕනේ. එයාලා ඇවිල්ලා දැන් දැනුත් තාම ඉන්නවද? ඒ කියන්නේ ඒගොල්ලෝ ඇවිල්ලා ගියාද කියන අදහස නැතුව එයාලා ඇවිල්ලා දැන් වැඩේ පටන් ගන්න දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ අපු එක දැන වැදගත්ද? තාමත් ඒක trueද කියලා අහනකොට we use have they come present perfect. එයාලා ආවද කියලා විතර නම් අහන්න ඕනේ. ආවා හැබැයි දැන් ඉන්නවද නැද්ද කියන එක අපිට වැදගත් නැහැ. ආවද කියන idea එක විතරයි. එතකොට එහෙම ආපුවම ඒගොල්ලෝ ඇවිල්ලා ගියා වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. Then you use simple past. Did they come? පාටියක් හිතන්නකෝ. ඕක එක්සෑම් එකට වඩා පාටි අපිට පුරුදු වෙන්නේ. ඔන්න දැන් පාටි එකක් තියෙනවා. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපේ පාටි එකක් දානකොට කසුන් තමයි බටන්ලා ගහන්නේ, গিitar ගහන්නේ, සින්දු කියන්නේ. අපිට සින්දු කියන්න බෑ. කසුන් ඉන්නවනම් සින්දු අහගෙන හරි අපිට එන්ජොයි කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් ඔන්න දැන් කසුන් නැත්තම් පාටියේ වැඩකුත් නැහැ වගේ. හරිද? ඔන්න දැන් පාටි එක මම ඕගනයිස් කළා කියලා හිතන්නකෝ. අපේ ගෙදර කෑම බීම ඒ සේරම තියෙනවා. දැන් යාළුවෝ වෙන්න කලින් කෝල් කරලා අහනවා මොකද මාත් එක්ක හිටියොත් බෝරින් නේ මං කරන්නේ ඉංග්‍රීසි ගන්න එකනේ. ඒ හින්දා මං හිටියට පාටියට එන්නේ නැහැ කසුන් නැත්තම්. හරිද? ඔන්න යාළුවෝ මගෙන් කෝල් කරලා අහන්නේ කසුන් ආවද කියලාද කසුන් ඇවිල්ලාද ඉන්නේ කියලාද?
කසුන් ඇවිල්ලාද ඉන්නේ.
කසුන් ඇවිල්ලාද ඉන්නේ කියලානේ. එතකොට එයාලා අහන්න ඕනේ did cousin come කියලාද? has cousin come කියලාද?
has cousin come.
has cousin come කියලා. එතකොට did cousin come කියලා ඇහුවොත් මට දෙන්න පුළුවන් උත්තරේ මොකද්ද? cousin ආවා හැබැයි cousinට මම බැන්න එහෙනම් cousin ගියා. එතකොට has cousin come කිව්වොත් මට උත්තරේ දෙන්න බෑ cousin ගියාට පස්සේ yes කියලා. ඒ cousin නෑනේ දැන් එතන. හැබැයි did cousin come කියලා නම් අනිත් යාළුවෝ එන්න කලින් අහන්නේ මට මොකද්ද කියන්න පුළුවන්? මට ඔව් කියන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ cousin ආවා දැන් නැති එක වෙනම කතාවක්. cousin ආවා.
ආවා. yeah.
clear නේද? Hashid. Cool.
ඒ කියන්නේ තරහ එක්කෙනෙක් පාටියට ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්නා නම් අපි යනවද නැද්ද කියලා ඩිසයිඩ් කරන්න පුළුවන් අරගෙන අහලා.
අන්න අපි දැන් හිතන්නේ අපි නැහැ. Mr. Pereira කැමති නැහැ. එතකොට Mr. Pereira ආවද? Did Mr. Pereira come? එතකොට has Mr. Pereira come කිව්වොත් එහෙනම් දැන් ඉන්නවද කියන අදහසත් එක්ක තමයි ප්‍රශ්නේ අහන්නේ.
මේ වෙලාවේ ඉන්නවා.
මේ වෙලාවේ ඉන්නව වෙන්නත්
we can decide.
ඉන්නවා. ඒ අනුව decide කරන්න පුළුවන්. did වලින් අර decide කරන්න බෑ because that is only in the past. It is not relevant to the moment of speaking. කතා කරන වෙලාවට ඒක relevant නැහැ. Right. So any other questions? Okay. So there are two more slides like this, which kind of summarizes all the things that you have learned so far. And then there are like slides for each of these tenses that we have done with the short note like thing and the time expressions that we can use for each. And also I will share with you a 5-hour video where we discussed all these things. The link to that, it was done like 6 months ago, but that covers all these things in depth. But we will also complete these things as a discussion in class because you are not here to watch recordings, you are here for discussions. So yeah, next week we will try to finish this and dive into modals. And on the following week, we will try to have the live boot activity. And I will share you some tips and some ideas about the live boot activity so your teams can prepare. So Lali, hello. You're not in any groups, right?
No, sir.
Okay. So what is your favorite color, red or blue?
Blue.
Okay, so you will be put into the Ravenclaw blue team, and what I noticed is the blue team is not very active. Like they don't chat much, they don't discuss anything. But the red team, it's quite fascinating to see how they do things. So yeah, so maybe when you get there, try to get your team members to talk and motivate them to be ready for the activities and try to win. But yeah, I will add you to the blue one. So the reds, I will also talk to you. You have been given mentors. So I think Hashini is in the red team and Chaturika is in the blue one, right? So they are your teachers assigned for those teams as your mentors. So if you have any issues, any questions to ask them regarding activities, then they will be there to help. So that is like today's session, dragged down for about 20 minutes more, but that's fine. So thank you very much for being here until the end of this session. I will share the links, the slides, and the video for that 5-hour thing in the Google Classroom and your WhatsApp group. All right. So thanks. Good night to you.
Good
Thank you,
night.
sir.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.